Good evening, and welcome to the latest happenings inside our federal machine.
It's Friday, February 20th, 2026. It's Spathon with a historic episode of The Swamp. And no, the title is not clickbait. Trump literally imposed a sweeping global tariff after the Supreme Court made their announcement today because, believe it or not, it looks like Trump was prepared for this decision all along. As you probably heard, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled 6-3 against President Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or the IEEPA, to impose sweeping tariffs. First, we'll have a look at the text of the Supreme Court decision and how political pundits are interpreting it. Next, we'll watch President Trump's announcement on the Supreme Court's decision and the Q&A portion of the announcement because the media was especially fiery over the announcement. After that, we'll see how Democrat and Republican politicians are reacting to the news. And finally, we'll have a look at what President Trump's options are moving forward, as well as the plans he already prepared in anticipation of today's decision. So if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like and subscribe to the channel if you get a quick second. Ring the bell and all that good stuff, especially if you enjoy the daily updates on the swamp. And if you leave a comment below, I might just read it on tomorrow's episode. And every article you will see, I'm trying to think if there are going to be any articles. Yeah, there's going to be at least a couple. Well, at least the Supreme Court's decision, that's going to be a link below for sure. But any other article that I may come across in this episode, it'll be a link below in the description, as always. So we're going to begin right here with SCOTUS Wire from 10 hours ago. In a 6-3 vote, the Supreme Court strikes down President Trump's tariffs, holding that the president cannot use the IEEPA and Congress alone has the taxing power. Roberts delivered the opinion and judgment of the court. Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh dissented. So this is just the first page of the Supreme Court's ruling, and the entirety can be found right here, which, just like I said a second ago, it will be linked below. It's 170 pages in total. Justice Kavanaugh's dissent alone went over 60 pages. He gave a really lengthy dissent. He was very specific about his disagreement with the court's decision, and we'll take a look through some of that with regard to Justice Kavanaugh. The court's ruling applies only to tariffs imposed under IEEPA. The decision does not invalidate tariffs imposed under other statutes, e.g. Section 232 or Section 301. It holds only that IEEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. So that's very important. There's a lot of tariffs that have been imposed under President Trump. So this doesn't mean, contrary to what you might hear over on the Democrat side, the liberal mainstream media, this does not affect all tariffs. It only affects the tariffs that Trump imposed under the IEEPA. So there's going to be plenty of tariffs that are going to be held in place. And as I said at the very, very beginning, President Trump, I believe, was already planning for this decision in the first place, because why wouldn't he? I mean, it would be smart to do just that, because, you got to have a plan B, plan C, plan D. So anyway, this is the first page, October term 2025. I believe, yeah, so it was argued on November 5th of 2025. That's when the case was argued before the Supreme Court. So it's taken them not a hell of a lot of time, but it took them several weeks to put together their opinions. So let's see here. So the Supreme Court of the United States, Learning Resources, Inc. et al. Versus Trump, President of the United States et al. Let's see, certiorari before judgment to the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, number 24-1287, argued November 5th, decided February 20th of 2026. So I'm not going to go through all of the text because I got a lot of other stuff to get through. There's some posts where they lay it out pretty well, so as to not have to go through every single letter, word of every page. So I'll just start right here with Eric Doherty. So breaking SCOTUS Justice Clarence Thomas dropped straight truth bombs in his dissent on the tariffs. He nailed it. Quote, neither the statutory text nor the Constitution provides a basis for ruling against the president. Congress authorized the president to regulate importation. Throughout American history, the authority to regulate importation has been understood to include the authority to impose duties on imports. The meaning of that phrase was beyond doubt by the time that Congress enacted the statute shortly after President Nixon's highly publicized duties on imports were upheld based on identical language. The The statute that the president relied on therefore authorized him to impose the duties on imports at issue in these cases. Because the Constitution assigns Congress many powers that do not implicate the non-delegation doctrine, Congress may delegate the exercise of many powers to the president. Congress has done so repeatedly since the founding, with this court's blessing, the greatest of all time. And this is the first page of Justice Clarence Thomas' dissension. And he says, I join Justice Kavanaugh's principled dissent in full. As he explains, the court's decision today cannot be justified as a matter of statutory interpretation. Congress authorized the president to regulate importation, 50 U.S.C. Section 1702A1B. Throughout American history, the authority to regulate importation has been understood to include the authority to impose duties on imports. So I believe that the gist of it was already outlined in the post from Eric Daugherty. So we'll head to the next post, which is going to be from MJ Truth Ultra. Within Justice Kavanaugh's dissent, he says the Supreme Court got it wrong, but says Trump still has all the cards. The IEEPA law does not let the president impose tariffs during a national emergency based on its text, history, and precedents. The majority wrongly applied the strict major questions doctrine to block it in foreign affairs or trade. Even if the ruling stands, presidents can likely impose similar or most of the same tariffs using these other trade laws instead. And these are the ones, and we're going to get into this probably a couple of times throughout this video. The first one being the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Section 232, which pertains to national security. And the Trade Act of 1974, Sections 122, 201, and 301, Unfair Trade Safeguards and Balance of Payments. And the third one is the Tariff Act of 1930, Section 338, Retaliatory Tariffs. I don't know why he wouldn't have laid out a lot of them under just Section, I'm assuming that's 301, with the balance of payments, because President Trump has said repeatedly that his reasoning for putting these tariffs on all these other countries is because we've been getting ripped off for years. They put big tariffs on us, but we weren't tariffing them at all. So it was an imbalanced economic system between the United States and most other countries out there. So I assume balance of payments. Maybe I'm misreading that. Maybe that doesn't have anything to do with, well, they're going to charge us 10%, so let's charge them 10%. But anyway, let's see. So these require a few extra steps like investigations, but cover the tariffs at issue. Bottom line, legally, he says this was the wrong call, but presidents do have major workarounds via those other statutes. And again, that was from Justice Kavanaugh that he was quoting. And is this going to be the same? Yeah, so this is just the same link that I've already listed up there. So let me go ahead and just read a little bit of this. I'm only going to go through the highlighted portion. Although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That is because numerous other federal statutes authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs at issue in this case, albeit perhaps with a few additional procedural steps that IEEPA, as an emergency statute, does not require. Those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, the Trade Act of 1974, and the Tariff Act of 1930. In essence, the court today concludes that the president checked the wrong statutory box by relying on IEEPA rather than another statute to impose these tariffs. So in other words, Justice Kavanaugh is essentially telling Trump what he needs to do at this point in order to allow his current tariffs to stand, which technically they're not going to stand in their current form because he was relying on the IEEPA version to roll out his tariffs. But now Justice Kavanaugh, he gave 3 examples that President Trump can use to roll out the same tariffs, but just put them under just a different act. So I'm actually surprised that President Trump's lawyers, his constitutional scholars, whoever it is that's working around him that laid out everything, you think that they would have been able to catch that and not have to rely on the Supreme Court to pretty much give him a roadmap to keep all these tariffs in place, but whatever. In any event, the only issue before the court today is one of law. In light of the statutory text, long-standing historical practice, and relevant Supreme Court precedents, I would conclude that IEEPA authorizes the president to regulate importation by imposing tariffs on foreign imports during declared national emergencies. I therefore respectfully dissent. So that's Justice Kavanaugh's a portion of his dissent, and we'll roll on to the next. So this video, I considered playing it because it is an interview with Howard Lutnick. I might get to this later on because there's a lot of people that are really fired up about something having to do with Howard Lutnick and his son. Apparently, his son was betting against the tariffs being ruled in Trump's favor, and he was purchasing tariff buybacks. I'm not any kind of economical or economist or an expert or anything like that, but apparently it's like Howard Lutnick owns some bank or something, or his son owns a bank, and I guess with regard to companies, like they're able to sell essentially like the tariffs that they're entitled to, assuming Trump's tariffs fall through, and all of these importers and exporters are owed back tariff money because now that the tariffs have been overturned, let's say company A, they paid $10 million worth of tariffs over the last year. Well, they can make the argument that now $10 million is owed to them from the government. Well, I guess Howard Lutnick's son running this bank or whatever he's running, he has been purchasing these tariff buyback purchases from these companies, essentially having the ability to give over a small percentage of the tariffs that's owed to a company, but he gets to keep 100%. I don't know. I'm probably not wording it very well, but in other words, Howard Lutnick and his son stand to make billions of dollars off of this Supreme Court decision. I mean, in essence, but we'll get into the details with that. If I remember this video, then maybe I'll play it later on in the episode, because there's at least one or two posts that I have with regard to Howard Lutnick, and I think it involves Alex Jones explaining it. So that should be interesting. So we'll just move to Eric W. Justice Kavanaugh invokes text, history, tradition, common sense, and context to disagree with the majority opinion. He goes through in painful detail to show why the tariffs are justified and agrees with Obama-appointed Judge Toronto in doing so. And none of this is highlighted, so I don't want to get through it in word for word. Plus, with this being the X platform, I can't zoom in because it won't let me zoom in. But it does give the page numbers. That's page 4. It looks like page 3, assuming that's page 3. So page 1, 2, 3, and 4. This looks like it's going to be in the beginning, either of the text of the Supreme Court decision or at the beginning of Kavanaugh's dissension, which I think that's what it is, because it says Kavanaugh dissenting right there in the subtitle. So, but I will repost this if you want to have a look at that. There's a direct link to my profile down in the description. And we'll just go to Sean Davis and his dissent. Kavanaugh mocks the Roberts majority for upholding Biden's lawless vaccine mandate for government employees while arguing that a law giving the president authority to regulate and even fully ban, equivalent to an infinite tariff, all imports somehow doesn't give him authority to levy non-infinite tariffs. And it's another situation. So I do see the COVID-19 here, that case. So let me just start at this top of this paragraph. This court's recent decision in Biden versus Missouri, 595 U.S. 87, 2022, per curiam, strongly supports the president's position here. That case involved a challenge to President Biden's COVID-19 vaccine requirement for millions of healthcare workers. The executive action there, too, was undoubtedly major, but the court upheld the government's vaccine mandate based on a general statutory authorization for HHS to impose safety requirements for healthcare facilities, notwithstanding the lack of explicit statutory reference to vaccines. That is fucking insane. I honestly don't remember them doing that. The Supreme Court ruling that if you are a healthcare worker, that you're mandated by the Supreme Court to take a vaccine. What if it's against your religious practices? What if you think it's like the mark of the beast or something and you're being legitimate about it? Because I heard somewhere that like some people were claiming that it may have been that, or, for whatever reason, you really don't even have to give your employer a reason. If it's against your religion, it's against your religion. The end. I cannot believe that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Biden's vaccine requirement for healthcare workers. Insane, dude. Absolutely insane. Especially knowing now what we probably knew back in 2022. The COVID vaccine, it didn't stop the spread of COVID. If you got the COVID vaccine, you were getting COVID anyway, no matter what. All right, so that's for a whole nother topic. So anyway, impose, let's see, where was I? So in doing so, the court emphasized that state vaccine requirements were common for healthcare workers and that the federal government regularly required healthcare workers to take various safety precautions. I mean, yeah, I guess that's fair. I guess if you're going to, lob it in with all the other vaccine requirements, yeah, I would go as far as to assume that healthcare workers do have to get certain vaccines. Matter of fact, I seem to recall a time when I used to work for a facility that was in the medical field and I had to get a TB test. And if I didn't want to get it, I couldn't work there. So Yeah, so there is some validity to that. Notably, the court upheld the vaccine mandate, even though, as the dissenters pointed out, the federal government has not traditionally imposed such vaccine requirements on healthcare workers. So, yeah, that's also a fair point, too. Maybe that whole TB thing that I was required to get wasn't government mandated. It was just a requirement of the company that I was looking to work for. But, all right, so anyway, let's move on to the next here. From just simply MAGA, Stricken Lobster from 9 hours ago. Real Donald Trump will pivot and change the IEEPA tariffs to other tariffs as authorized by the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 or the Trade Act of 1974 or the Tariff Act of 1930. See Justice Kavanaugh's dissent. Although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That is because numerous other federal statutes authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs at issue in this case, albeit perhaps with a few additional procedural steps that IEEPA, as an emergency statute, does not require. Those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, the Trade Act of 1974, and the Tariff Act of 1930. In essence, the court today concludes that the president checked the wrong statutory box by relying on IEEPA rather than another statute to impose these tariffs. I believe I already read that, but still, I mean, it's a very important part of the decision because, like I said, Justice Kavanaugh is essentially giving the president a roadmap and also explaining it in layman's terms so everyday people can understand what it is that he's conveying. And it sounds to me like Justice Kavanaugh is pretty confident that as long as he just changes the language of the tariffs and which act that he's going to impose these tariffs under, pretty much all the tariffs that he's already rolled out worldwide are just going to end up standing regardless. They just have to change the language of his executive orders imposing these tariffs. So doesn't sound like it's going to be a very difficult thing. Look, Trump's had weeks and weeks, if not months. Maybe Trump was even preparing for this before he even got inaugurated last year. You know, who knows how long that he's been working on this plan, all the contingency plans and everything. So he may already have executive orders already pre-written, ready to be signed, expecting the Supreme Court to rule in the way that they did. I don't know, but we'll just have to see. The Supreme Court cannot override the two statutes below already passed in Congress that give all presidents the right to impose tariffs. The only one they struck down for Trump was the Emergency Power Act. So they highlight this out. So if Trump's IEEPA argument doesn't work, he still has sections 232 and 301. Sorry, it's kind of blurry. That's the best quality that they shared this with. So anyway, the overview of U.S. tariff laws and policy as of January 3rd, 2026. Tariffs in the United States are taxes on imported goods, primarily governed by the Harmonized Tariff Schedule of the United States, or HTSUS, administered by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. The legal framework includes constitutional basis. Congress has primary authority to impose tariffs, Article 1, Section 8, but it has delegated significant powers to the president through various laws. Key presidential authorities, Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. It allows tariffs for national security reasons, such as on steel, aluminum, automotive, copper, wood products. And there's Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974. Targets unfair trade practices, such as intellectual property theft, used extensively against China. And then there's the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which is what Trump had already been using, used by President Trump in 2025 for broad reciprocal tariffs on trade deficits. Its legality is under Supreme Court review with the ruling expected. Okay, so we already know that ruling. That's what came out today. That was the bombshell news for the day. And we're going to move on to the big one. This is President Trump dropping the announcement. Apparently, he learned of the tariff decision when he was having a governor's breakfast. I'm not sure how many states' governors showed up to this breakfast that he was hosting at the White House, but there were a number of states' governors that were there, and apparently he found out that the Supreme Court decision came down, and it was against Trump sweeping tariffs. And so there's a lot of rumors going around. Democrats said that he had a meltdown. He had a massive temper tantrum. Don't think any of that's true. Highly doubt it. I mean, I'm sure Trump probably said, well, you know, like, that's fucked up, or what the hell. You know, he probably dropped an F-bomb or two. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, Trump's dropped F-bombs on freaking live TV before.
Well, thank you very much for being here.
All right, so here we go.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country, which is right now very proud of those justices. When you read the dissenting opinions, there's no way that anyone can argue against them. There's no way. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long, that I can assure you. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They're an automatic no, just like in Congress. They're an automatic no.
Yeah, man, these liberal judges these days, they're just 100% ideologically driven. I don't think that they agree with probably 98% of anything that's conservative leaning that appears before the Supreme Court. The conservative judges, they side with liberal judges all the time because they just stick strictly to the Constitution, where it seems like that the three liberal justices on the Supreme Court, they lean toward ideology quite often, it seems.
Against anything that makes America strong, healthy, and great again. They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no, no matter how good a case you have. It's a no. But you can't knock their loyalty. It's one thing you can do.
Yeah, they put party over country
with some of
don't they?
Our people.
Isn't that the whole point for the black robes? So you remain apolitical?
Others think they're being politically correct, which has happened before far too often with certain members of this court. And it's happened so often with this court. What a shame. Having to do with voting in particular, when in fact they're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats, and not that this should have anything at all to do with it. They're very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution. It's my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests and a political movement that is far smaller than people would ever think. It's a small movement. I won by millions of votes. We won in a landslide. With all the cheating that went on, there was a lot of it, but we still won in a landslide. Too big to rig. But these people are obnoxious, ignorant, and loud. They're very loud. And I think certain justices are afraid of that. They don't want to do the right thing. They're afraid of it. This was an important case to me, more as a symbol of economic national security. And also, I would say, just for our country itself, so important, because we're doing so well as a country. We've never done so well. The good news is that there are methods, practices, statutes, and authorities, as recognized by the entire court in this terrible decision, and also as recognized by Congress, which they refer to, that are even stronger than the IEEPA tariffs available to me as President of the United States. And in actuality, I was very modest in my ask of other countries and businesses because I wanted to do, and it's very important, I wanted to be very well behaved because I wanted to do anything, I didn't want to do anything that would affect the decision of the court, because I understand the court. I understand how they're very easily swayed. I want to be a good boy. I have very effectively utilized tariffs over the past year to make America great again. Our stock market has just recently broken 50,000 on the Dow, and simultaneously, and even more amazingly, broken 7,000 on the S&P, two numbers that everybody thought upon our landslide election victory could not be attained. Think of that. Nobody thought it was possible to do it within 4 years, and we did it in 1 year. They said, you'll never be able, you'll go back and you read the geniuses, read their statements, all of the Nobel Prize winners in economics. They said, no, you couldn't do it in 4 years. Well, we didn't do it in 4 years. We did it in 1 year. We broke every record in the book, and we're continuing to do so. Tariffs have likewise been used to end 5 of the 8 wars that I settled. I settled 8 wars, whether you like it or not, including India, Pakistan, big ones, nuclear, could have been nuclear. Prime Minister of Pakistan said yesterday at the great meeting that we had, the Peace Board. He said yesterday that President Trump could have saved 35 million lives by getting us to stop fighting. They were getting ready to do some bad things, but they've given us great national security, these tariffs have, and together with our strong borders, reduced fentanyl coming into our country by 30%. When I use them as a penalty against countries illegally sending this poison
China
into our country to poison our youth, all of those tariffs remain. They all remain. I don't know if you know that or not. They all remain. We're still getting them, and we will after the decision.
The media is not reporting that. They're saying that all the tariffs have been stripped away. That's not true.
I have a lot of respect for them anyway, but such
a lot of the tariffs were not affected by this decision.
Alternatives will now be used to replace the ones that the court incorrectly rejected. We have alternatives, great alternatives.
I believe it's only the reciprocal tariffs that have been affected by this decision.
We'll be a lot stronger for it. We're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. We'll continue to do so. To show you how ridiculous the opinion is, however, the court said that I'm not allowed to charge even $1. I can't charge $1. Can't charge $1.
I'm sure one of the liberal justices probably wrote that one in.
We don't make the pennies anymore. We save money.
You know, just try to twist that knife.
Can't charge $1 to any country under
not even $1.
IEPA. Not $1. I assume to protect other countries. This must have been done to protect those other countries, certainly not the United States of America, which they should be interested in protecting. That's what they're supposed to be protecting. But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country.
Yeah, by the way, that quick passing comment, a lot of mainstream news, they were putting on their chyrons and on their titles saying, oh my God, Trump said during his speech that he can destroy the country if he wants to. He didn't say it in that context at all.
Destroying embargo. I can embargo.
Not literally.
I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1.
Yeah, you see, like they're saying, like, I can destroy the country. I can do anything I want now. So they're making him sound like that he's like going on this massive tirade, this ultimate meltdown. He's about to just burn the whole system down to the ground.
Because that's not what it says, and that's not the way it even reads. I can do anything I want to do to them, but I can't charge any money. So I'm allowed to destroy the country, but I can't charge them a little fee. I could give them a little two-cent fee, but I cannot charge under any circumstances. I cannot charge them anything. Think of that. How ridiculous is that? I'm allowed to embargo them. I'm allowed to tell them you can't do business in the United States anymore.
Yeah, he can. He can impose embargoes. He can also impose sanctions. I think pretty much any form of sanctions, financial or otherwise, against pretty much any other country he wants. But with regard to charging $1's worth of reciprocal tariffs, although we already did find out that there's other methods of tariffing other countries, which I'm sure that he's going to get to.
I want you out of here. But if I want to charge them $10, I can't do that. It's incorrect. Their decision's incorrect. But it doesn't matter because we have very powerful alternatives that have been approved by this decision. You know, they've been approved by the decision.
Yeah, of course, the media's not talking about that.
They had us. And
remember, Justice Kavanaugh's 3 recommendations.
I have the absolute right to license, but not the right to charge a license fee. So think of that. I have the right to
look, which, by the way, just because Justice Kavanaugh gave those 3 recommendations doesn't mean that Trump can do exactly that and the end. That there's not going to be any challenges to that. I'm sure any tariffs that Trump is going to put out from this day forward, you already know everything is going to be challenged in the federal courts, and then it's going to make its way to the Supreme Court. So we're definitely not going to hear the end with regard to tariffs in the court system.
License, which is a very powerful word. In many ways, license is more powerful than tariffs. In fact, I was thinking about using it. But they came up with the idea that I can license, just like the people that were opposing me told them to do, but not the right to charge a license fee. Think of that. Who ever heard of such a thing? What license has ever been issued without the right to charge a fee? You get a license, you charge a fee. It's automatic, but not with this court. But now the court has given me the unquestioned right to ban all sorts of things from coming into our country, to destroy foreign countries, but a much more powerful right than...
I'm assuming by that he means that there's other countries that very heavily rely on the United States economically. Not to list a number of countries. I'm sure there's quite a lot of countries that definitely rely on us. Like maybe if we were to cut off China, for instance, or I don't know, like maybe throwing out like Vietnam or something. I have no idea. Like I'm sure there's other countries out there that if we cut them off completely, that it would devastate their economy virtually overnight.
Many people ever thought we even had, but not the right to charge a fee. How crazy is that? Our country is the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. And it was a dead country 1.5 years ago under an incompetent president. But now I'm going to go in a different direction, probably the direction that I should have gone the first time, but I read the language. I'm very good at reading language, and it read our way 100%, but now I'll go the way I could have gone originally, which is even stronger than our original choice.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
Justice Kavanaugh, whose stock has gone so up, you have to see, I'm so proud of him, wrote in his dissent, although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. So, think of that. The decision might not substantially constrain. And it doesn't, he's right. In fact, I can charge much more than I was charging. So I'm going to just start. Although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That's because numerous other federal statutes, which is so true, authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs issued in this case. Even more tariffs, actually.
Most, if not all.
Those statutes include, think of that, those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Section 232. All of these things I know so well. The Trade Act of 1974, Sections 122, 201, 301. And the Tariff Act of 1930, Section 338, all clear. But it's a little bit longer process. I thought I'd make things simple, but they didn't let us do that. I would like to thank Justice Kavanaugh for frankly, his genius and his great ability. Very proud of that appointment. In actuality, while I am sure that they did not mean to do so, the Supreme Court's decision today made a president's ability to both regulate trade and impose tariffs more powerful and more crystal clear rather than less. I don't think they meant that. I'm sure they didn't.
Yeah, probably not.
It's terrible. And to think that the Democrats who oppose this only because they want to go the opposite way, they'd like to pack the court. They want to put on 21 people. They want to pack the court.
Yeah, not only that, I mean, they probably will if they retake the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office, but they also want globalism. I mean, they don't want any other country to have to pay us, but we have to continue paying them because I guess they must think that we're too rich and that we have to just spread everything out evenly and just kind of head down that whole road to global communism or something.
Pack the Supreme Court. Maybe they should do it. Maybe they would be better off if they did it. They want to pack the court. They want to do anything to hurt our country. There will no longer be any doubt, and the income coming in and the protection of our companies and country will actually increase because of this decision. I don't think the court meant that, but it's the way it is. Based on long-standing law and hundreds of victories, and even, as I was pointed out before, even thousands of victories over the years, to the contrary, the Supreme Court did not overrule tariffs. They merely overruled a particular use of IEEPA tariffs. And essentially, it's used to get a fee. I can do anything I want with IEEPA, anything. I just can't charge anybody for it. I can license, I just can't charge them. It's ridiculous, but it's okay because we have other ways, numerous other ways. The ability to block, embargo, restrict, license, or impose any other condition on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade with the United States under IEEPA has been fully confirmed by this decision. So now there's no doubt, because, you know, there were a lot of questions about tariffs because no president was smart enough to use them to protect our country from those countries and businesses that were ripping us off. You took a look at the deficits that we had with some of these countries. It was disgraceful what they got away with for many, many decades. But now we know, because this decision affirms all those things that some people weren't sure about. In order to protect, and it says so, in order to protect our country, a president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past period of a year under the various tariff authorities. So we can use other of the statutes, other of the tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and are fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122,
Boom.
over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And
there's your title, ladies and gentlemen.
Initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I say quite simply, which I've said for a long time, make America great again. And interestingly, we've already made it great, so I don't have to use that, but I don't think we'll ever give up on MAGA. MAGA is always going to be with us. If you have a few questions, you can let us know. But just to end, so
here we go.
We're going forward. We will be able to take in more money, and there'll no longer be doubt, because there was always doubt. I know the people that brought the lawsuit, and, you know, they're sleazebags, major sleazebags, but I know them.
Globalists, probably.
And they're foreign country centric. They were sending things into our country, and the people representing them knew full well, but they were sending things into our country, and they were beneficial to other countries, but very, very bad for us. And I stopped it, and we'll just keep it going. So we have we have a totally firm decision now, and I don't think the court meant it, because the court doesn't show great spirit toward our country, in my opinion. A lot of bad decisions, but there are usually ways around it. This is something we could have done, as Justice Kavanaugh said, we could have done this originally, but we're doing it now, and the numbers could be far greater than the hundreds of billions we've already taken in. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, I'm very curious.
Thank
you so much, Mr. President. Justice Thomas and Alito, as you know, are the most conservative constitutional justices. Do you think that you'll get to appoint 2 more justices later this term with similar ideologies? And what type of vetting process will they go through to ensure they uphold?
I don't know, but they're great justices. That's all I can say. And I hope they're going to be around a long time. I hope they're going to stay healthy. They're great people. They're great.
Yeah,
and Justice
sure.
Alito, too, to add to the group. These are great men.
Right.
They're with a great love of our country and a great understanding of the law.
Mr. President, are you going to ask Congress to take additional action on tariffs now?
No, I don't need to. It's already been approved. I mean, I would ask Congress and probably get it. When people look at the real numbers, and you look at hundreds of billions of dollars that have come into our country. Yesterday, I was at a steel plant, as you know, and I went to great place, great plant, great, wonderful people. And they were telling me, I said to them, you were there, a lot of the press in this room. Of course, I don't think this plane's big enough to take the press in this room, but a lot of the press right here. We were in Georgia. And I said to the owner, I made a speech at a factory. They make steel products. And I said, how are you? Nice to meet you. How's business? President, I'd love to kiss you. This is a very powerful man. I don't want to be kissed by that man, but a very powerful, strong man. He's been in the steel business for many years. His father started it. And he said, sir, I want to kiss you. I said, why? He said, because we were down to working 1 hour a week, and then you came in and imposed tariffs, and all of that foreign junk that they were dropping into our country stopped. And we're now going to double shifts, 7 days a week, and we may be very soon going to 24 hours around the clock, almost 7 days a week. He said, "Sir, I want to kiss you so badly." And I said, "No, thank you." But you know what? He just, and just to finalize it, he said, "Oh, this is a great place in Georgia." He said, "All up and down the highway, same exact answer, sir. We're all going out of business. We're going to go bankrupt. We're all going out of business. And now every one of us are thriving, and we're hiring people like we haven't." He said, "Like I've never," and he's been in business for, I think, 45 years, "like we've never hired before." That's because of tariffs. And we're going to keep it going the same way. And you're going to start to see the results in a year from now when all those factories start that are under construction right now. You see all the construction numbers are so good. Those construction workers are building factories that are going to be open, including not only AI, which is big, but car plants coming in from Canada, who ripped us off for 30% of our market. Mexico ripped us off for a big portion. Over the years, they've taken our market. They've taken our cars. They manufacture them in Japan, Germany, and all over the place because nobody's standing in this position. The position I have as President of the United States had the insight, the courage, well, I don't know what it is, to charge tariffs. You can make your product outside. You can put our people out of business. You can put everybody on the unemployment rolls. But if you're going to make a car in some other country, you're going to pay a 15, 20, 30% tariff. And those things would have never happened. We wouldn't have lost our business. Same thing with, as an example, Taiwan. Taiwan came in. They stole our chip business. They make chips. For 30 years longer, they made chip. And they put our companies, Intel would be now the largest company. I saved Intel. I literally saved it at the beginning of this administration. And now all those companies in Taiwan are building factories in Arizona, Texas, and various other places because they don't want to pay tariffs. They're all pouring into the United States. But just like that great patriot said yesterday, "Sir, what you've done, nobody thought was possible." And Steve Moore, a highly respected economist, came into my office yesterday. He said, "You've done something nobody's ever done." 22 Nobel Prize winners in economics said we would right now be in a recession, and you said, "No, we're going to have a booming country. We're going to have a booming country." You were right. All 22 were wrong, and you were right. This country is booming, and it's booming because of the election on November 5th, and it's booming for another reason. It's booming because of tariffs. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President.
What was said ahead of this decision that if the Supreme Court
please,
ruled?
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. What will you say to foreign nations who seek to renegotiate their deals? And what did you mean a moment ago when you said that the Supreme Court has been swayed by foreign interests?
Well, I think that foreign interests are represented by people that I believe have undue influence. They have a lot of influence over the Supreme Court, whether it's through fear or respect or friendships, I don't know.
Just
but I know
connections,
some of the people
probably.
that were involved on the other side, and I don't like them. I think they're real slime balls. And
Probably lobbying plays
right
a part of it
You got to
too.
do what's right
Maybe.
for the Constitution.
I mean, not to
That's
say they
why I
directly lobby
respect
the Supreme Court, but
so much Justice Thomas.
who knows what happens
Alito,
behind closed doors?
Kavanaugh, because they not only dissented, their dissent is so strong. When you read their dissent, you know, a lot of times you'll read a dissent and it's like, well, you don't know, it could go either way.
Yeah, very legalese.
There's no other way. The good news is, it's like Justice Kavanaugh said, very strongly said, you have other ways you can go. You don't have to go that way. You can go other way. There are numerous other ways you can go. And frankly, this should have been done by presidents many years ago. They allowed our country to be eaten alive.
Yep,
We lost
globalism.
50% of our car business. We used to make cars. We made all the cars.
Yeah, the best in the world.
And then Mexico came, Canada came, and Japan and Germany.
Yeah.
But they're all coming back now. They're all coming back at record levels. Please. I'm not talking to you. I don't talk to CNN. It's fake news. Go ahead.
Mr. President, yesterday you made the case that the economy is the hottest it's been
Not
in a
today.
long time.
Right.
January jobs report beat expectation. CPI report beat expectation. Real wages are up. What would you tell Americans who are worried that this decision will kind of throw the economy that you have projected going in the right direction at a very rapid pace off track?
Well, thank you for the question. And I will say this. We really are at a very important point. I've been waiting for this decision so long. They could have made this decision a long time ago. Not complex. They're wrong on it. It's a ridiculous decision. But they should have released this a long time ago. We waited months. And that gave uncertainty. Now we have certainty. And I think you're going to see the country get much stronger because of it. Look, we were ripped off by almost every country in the world. If you look at the surpluses, almost every country in the world that did business with us, our people were stupid. And I blame presidents for it because they're ultimately the leader. We were being ripped off by almost every single country in the world had some massive surpluses. China had hundreds of billions of dollars in surpluses with the United States. They rebuilt China. They rebuilt the army.
Yeah, they did.
We built
They
China's
modernized
army
the hell
by
out of
allowing
China
that to happen. I have a great relationship
over the last
with
30 years.
President Xi, but he respects our country now. Now, what we've done, I charged China a 20% tariff as a penalty for sending fentanyl in. And that was 20 times more
That's
than
a
they
national
could make
emergency.
by selling fentanyl. And I said, at some point you're going to say, and they have reduced it. Fentanyl is down by more than 30% coming into our country. Part of that is a strong border. We have a strong border.
That and our military.
But thank you. Thank you for your question.
Mr. President, sir, you warned once in a social media post that if the Supreme Court did this, shot down your tariffs, the U.S. would be, quote, financially defenseless. Are we financially defenseless right now?
No, because we're doing something in a different way. We're doing something in a very powerful way, and we're using things that some people thought we should have used in the first place. But it's more complicated. It's a little more complicated. The process takes a little more time, but the end result is going to get us more money, and I think it's going to be great. Yeah, please. Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. So, since Liberation Day, there's about $175 billion in tariff revenue that is now in limbo. Do you have to refund $175 billion?
Think of it, Peter. Very fair question. They take months and months
It's a great
to write
question.
an opinion, and they don't even discuss that
Yeah,
point.
they never mentioned it.
We've taken in hundreds.
Yeah, I was going to get to that if he didn't mention that. They didn't mention anything about refunds in the entire Supreme Court decision. Well over 100 pages worth of text, all these reasons as to why that Trump is not allowed to impose this specific form of tariffs, but they gave nothing, no direction, no nothing with regard to how this money is going to be redispersed back to those who had been paying the tariffs for months on end, or how it might be refunded. Honestly, I'm not sure if they even really know what's going to become of it. I have a feeling that Trump is going to work around this decision and essentially just keep the tariffs that he had already imposed regardless, but just under a different act or statute or whatever you want to call it. And therefore, the refunds are probably just never going to come to any fruition.
Hundreds of billions of dollars, not millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And so I said, well, what happens to all the money that we took in? It wasn't discussed. Wouldn't you think they would have put one sentence in there saying that keep the money or don't keep the money, right? I guess it has to get litigated for the next 2 years. So they write this terrible, defective decision, totally defective. It's almost like not written by smart people. And what they do, they don't even talk about that. Your question is very basic. That was the first question I asked also to make you feel good. I said, what about all the money that we've taken in? Sir, they don't discuss that.
We don't know.
How crazy is that?
What you're saying is, are you saying that you don't plan to honor refunds for companies that file for them?
I just told you the answer, right? I told you the answer. It's not discussed. We'll end up being in court for the next 5 years.
Yeah, he can't make that decision. It's because the Supreme Court didn't rule on that. It just sounds like that it's somebody is going to have to look, and I'm sure there's probably going to be probably hundreds of companies that are going to file lawsuits to get refunds from the federal government. And like President Trump said, it's going to have to get litigated in court, and we'll just have to see.
Go ahead. ahead, Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you are talking about the relationship with countries that you have sought trade deals with, do you anticipate that they will seek to renegotiate those? What do you say to them? And do you view this as a potential undermining power for your
We're
negotiations?
going straight ahead with 10% straight across the board, which was the absolute right to do. And that's taking place. That's a lot of money coming into our country. And then during that period of about 5 months, we are doing the various investigations necessary to put fair tariffs or tariffs, period, on other countries. So we're doing that period, but we're immediately instituting the 10% provision, which we're allowed to do. And in the end, I think we'll take in more money than we've taken in before.
Yeah, because if it's flat across the board, maybe it will average out to more money dollar for dollar than the current tariff stand right now. I mean, it kind of sucks in the way that at least according to President Trump, some countries ought to be paying a 35% tariff, and other countries should only be paying 5 or 6%. But imposing just 10% across the board, maybe that just levels the playing field, which, maybe that, like I said, probably doesn't work to a great advantage to some countries. Maybe others, it'll work to a great advantage.
Mr. President, you've used the tariff revenue to pay for a host of federal policies. You claim that they will pay for them. What happens to
Like
those
the
things?
farmers. We took care of farmers. The farmers were mistreated by foreign countries very badly, very, very badly. And last week, I gave them $12 billion out of tariff money. We intend to, out of tariff money, because just so you understand, we have tariffs. We just have them in a different way. And now they've been confirmed.
Yeah, see, I don't think that the media understands that. They just assume that all tariffs that have ever been touched by Trump are just instantly vaporized and gone. And that's not the case. There's still many tariffs out there that aren't affected by this decision.
By the Supreme Court of the United States. So there's no longer that question out there about tariffs. And we'll be taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. And countries that have treated us badly will have to pay a price for treating us badly. And countries that have been good to us will be treated very well. We just left the top person in a place called Vietnam, just left my office. Great gentleman, strong and smart. He said, I think this means you're allowed to charge us more tariffs than before. And Canada said to Jameson, I might want to say it, Jameson, but Canada said, I hope you win this decision, because if you don't win, you'll actually be allowed to charge us, with a little additional work, higher tariffs. Jameson, you want to comment on that?
Yes, sir. So to the President's point, we have a lot of tools out there. We have Section 122, which will be implemented today. It will be signed today and implemented very shortly. We have Section 301 investigations, which are incredibly legally durable, where we can investigate and address unfair trading practices that have led to our huge trade deficit.
Okay.
And so you can look forward in the coming days and weeks to seeing all of that come out, and we're going to keep continuity in the program. We're going to keep addressing this so that the
Well, see, but my question is who does he have to argue that to? Which court? I'm assuming it's a court that they have to argue that to. Is that going to be just any federal district court, or is that going to have to be litigated in front of the Supreme Court? I doubt it would have to go before the Supreme Court to argue, this is how much that we have to impose in tariffs against this country because this is how much money we've lost, like $476 billion that we've lost to insert country name here, and this is why we want to impose tariffs under this section. I'm not sure where that's going to happen. I guess we'll just have to find out in due time.
Keep going down. That's the trend.
Unless you're well read enough to already have the answer to that.
Several of Republicans in Congress have supported this decision by the Supreme Court, and Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, has called you a wannabe king. Why wouldn't
him a low IQ?
But why wouldn't
he? Doesn't even know. And I watched him the other day interview. The guy doesn't even know what a tariff is.
I doubt he actually does.
No, not bipartisan. Excuse me.
There's several Republicans have said that.
Yeah,
But
a
why
few people.
wouldn't you just work with Congress to come up with a plan?
I don't have to
push tariffs.
I have the
through?
right to do tariffs. And
Because the Democrats will be a hard no matter what, because they want globalism. That's what they want. It's just that simple. Democrats, they don't want to have anything to do with tariffs at all. And I'm sure Democrats, what is it, under Bill Clinton? Wasn't that a large part of that got us into this problem to begin with? Was it the Pacific Partnership or whatever they called that trade agreement, where essentially like a number of countries around the world, we're not going to charge them anything, but they get to charge us essentially whatever the hell they want, it seems.
I've always had the right to do tariffs, and it's all been approved by Congress, so there's no reason to do it. All we're doing is we're going through a little bit more complicated process, not complicated very much, but a little more complicated than what we had. We'll be able to take in tariffs, more tariffs. And the Congress people and the Congress,
the Canadian tariffs last week. There's been votes in the Senate against it.
Yeah, because we lost 2 Republicans or 3 Republicans because they're not good Republicans. What you don't say, you don't say that we got 215 votes.
You need 218 for something to pass.
Yeah, sure we do. We might have lost 3 votes, and we got. And what was the score on the Republican side? 215 to 3, right? But you don't say that. We have great unity. There's great unity in the Republican Party, and I hope everyone's going to vote Republican, because otherwise you won't have a country left, because these people have been destroying.
They are
destroying our country. Please.
Mr. President, the 122 tariffs, that 10%, is that going to be for 150 days, or do you want to charge that indefinitely?
We have a right to do pretty much what we want to do, but we're going to charge it starting effectively, I think it's 3 days from now. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, you speak to a lot of factory workers, a lot of manufacturing workers. What does the Supreme Court ruling say? What's that message to those factory workers?
Well, I think the factory workers are happy because we're now telling them that they're going to look. The man I met with yesterday who owned a factory was out of business. He was out of business. And now he's employing 5 times. In fact, I walked in, he's got a brand new crane. I said, how old is that crane? We got it in December. He's allowed to write it off in 1 minute. The great big beautiful act gave no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. He said this great big beautiful bill, frankly, has been the best thing that's ever happened for the workers much more so than for rich people. The only thing it does for rich people, it allows them to hire a lot more people. But when I saw him, and then he said it's all up and down the line. This is a place in Georgia, all up and down, other factories doing different, not only steel products, different. He said every one of us was out of business. We could barely make it. Some of them were down to less than an hour a week. Think of it, 1 hour a week to make just a few little trinkets or whatever they make. Now they're going round the clock. I had it a month ago. I went to Michigan, went to Ford, and I met with Bill Ford, the head of Ford, and we were in one of the biggest plants, an original plant from the early 1900s, where, by the way, I might add this, it's not really relevant, but it's all relevant. Murders are down the lowest since 1900, around the time that he had this plant. That's 125 years. We have the lowest murder rate. Okay. And our crime is way down in the country. The factories that we're talking about, the people that we're talking about, they are so thrilled with Trump. So whether we charge IEEPA tariffs or whether we charge tariffs under a different section, that's what we're going to be doing. There's no way we can this is what happened to our country. This is why we owe $38 trillion, which we'll get rid of in pretty good course. We have a very incompetent Fed chairman who likes high interest rates. For political reasons, he likes them. But we're going to have somebody very good. Interest rates should come down very substantially. I think we should pay the lowest interest rates on the planet. There should be no country, and we don't do that. We're number 38. This is just bad policy for a long period of time. But what's happened is we've made America strong again. We've made America great again. We should pay.
It's not the right
people. As an example, the country of Switzerland, we were getting almost no tariffs from them. We had a $40 billion deficit. And the prime minister called me up. She said, but we are a small country, because I said we're going to raise it to 39% from nothing. That would have rendered them not very successful, as opposed to right now they're considered elite. But if we put a tariff...
Yeah, they probably do a lot of business with America.
She said, but sir, we are a small country. I said, you're a small country with a big deficit. For us, you're making a lot of money.
Well, they're a small country, but they're quite a rich country when you look at their per capita.
Off the United States.
I'm sure it's probably higher than the average per capita in the U.S.
A lot of these elite countries, they're
Switzerland?
elite because we let them make so much money. And I want them to do well. But I don't want them to do well on the backs of the American taxpayer. So I appreciate your question. I think it's reasonable.
Mr. President Trump, you said that you were disappointed with that, but were you surprised with this decision? What you felt when you...
I was surprised because I thought that what we did was, number one, according to, I mean, I read the paragraphs, I read very well.
Well, look, and I don't think he was astounded by the decision. I'm sure that Trump probably follows the likes of Polymarket that I've been showing here on the Swamp over the last several days, and Polymarket had it down to a 26% chance that Trump's tariffs were going to be ruled in favor by the Supreme Court. So just looking at that, there's other markets out there that keep track of stuff like that, like betting markets and things of that sort. So I don't think he was probably all that surprised. Obviously, he was very hopeful that it was going to pass, and from his argument, he had a lot of justification in believing that they were going to end up passing the tariffs. They just didn't. 6-3.
Great comprehension. I read everything there is to read, and I said, we can't lose this case. But we can when judges are political, when they want to be politically correct, when they're catering to a group of people in D.C. maybe. I don't know what it is, because when you read it, there's no other interpretation. There is no other interpretation. But it's okay, because what has come out, and I'll say it for the third time and maybe the last time in a while, is that we've taken the uncertainty of tariffs out, because we had uncertainty. We got sued by sleazebags, I know them well, that are very outside country, China-centric, but outside country-centric. And they're going to end up not doing as well as they did before. America was becoming really, really, we're strong again. Hey, we have the strongest military. I rebuilt the military in the first term. We have the most powerful military. We make the best equipment. And even them, you know, we could do much better. We have people that get paid a lot of money to manufacture Patriot missiles and javelins and all the different things. But when you want them, they're too slow. And we put them on notice, and they're going to make, our country is building a lot of things right now, and our country is doing really well, and we're going to keep it that way. The bottom line is that the word certainty is now in the equation. Every single thing I said today is guaranteed certainty. It's been tested, as Jameson said 1,000 times. Literally, I said hundreds of times. He said, sir, actually thousands of times, and won in all of the courts. And we're just going back to that. And the problem is that we had other presidents.
The other form of the tariffs
weren't into trade. Maybe they weren't business oriented. Maybe they weren't smart. We had some dummies too, you know. I respectfully say we had some real dummies.
Economically speaking, yeah,
so we are
absolutely.
going to keep it going.
I bet most presidents throughout history, economically speaking, are probably buffoons for the most part. They probably don't understand economics, especially not to the likes of President Trump being already a billionaire before he even ran for any office, going straight to the presidency. I mean, like going back to one of the first debates that he had with Hillary Clinton, what pretty much swung me toward his favor. I was like, all right, well, I'm voting for this man now. He said, it's about time that we have a president in office who knows money, who understands money, and stops squandering our economy.
Just as before, probably more so, but you're no longer going to be asked. Every time I got up, you'd ask, well, what happens if you can't charge tariffs? Now we can. And by the way, in their decision, they specifically said, we can do these. We have alternatives. Yeah.
David, on the trade deals that were negotiated using IEEPA tariffs, do those stand now, or are they have to be redone?
Well, some of them stand. Many of them stand. Some of them won't, and they'll be replaced with the other tariffs.
Okay. In due time. We don't have a timeline yet.
Justices who ruled against this the policy, striking it down, are they still invited to your State of the Union next week? And will you speak with them?
They are invited.
Silly question. Barely.
3 are happily invited. No, they're barely invited.
Silly question. Of course they're invited.
Less if they come. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the trade deal, which is the framework which is to be signed with India sometime soon, will that stand now? And on the decision, nothing changes?
No, nothing changes. They'll be paying tariffs, and we will not be paying tariffs. Our deal with India is they pay tariffs. This is a reversal from what it used to be, as you know. India, I think Prime Minister Modi is a great gentleman, a great man, actually, but he was much smarter than the people that he was against in terms of the United States. He was ripping us off in India. So we made a deal with India, and it's a fair deal now, and we are not paying tariffs to them, and they are paying tariffs. We did a little flip.
Nice.
Are up as of now for this, Mr. President.
No, the India deal is on here.
Mr. President. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
All the deals are on. It's just we're just going to do it a different way.
Mr. President. Thank you so much, Mr. President. I think there's another war that you stopped and you should take the credit, which is in Syria. Secretary Rubio, after his meeting in Munich with the Syrian Foreign Minister and the Kurdish General Muslim Abdi, he said that President Trump was directly involved in efforts to stop the fighting between the Kurds and the Syrians. How will your administration will make sure that this peace is sustained? And do you support the idea?
Well, it's a very different topic.
It's not really
so
related.
I don't want to spend a lot of time, but all I can say is that the president of Syria, who I essentially put there, is doing a phenomenal job. He's a rough guy. He's not a choir boy. A choir boy couldn't do it. But Syria is coming together, really coming together well. And thus far, he's been very good to the Kurds. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President, what's your message to the Iranian people after 2 rounds of talks with them? Do you have any message to the Iranian people?
The Iranian people in Iran or people here?
People in Iran.
In Iran? Keep fighting?
Better negotiate a fair deal. You know, the people of Iran are a lot different than the leaders of Iran. And it's very, very...
Well, yeah, they're Persians.
Very sad situation. But 32,000 people were killed over a relatively short period of time. They were going to hang 800, 2 weeks ago, hang, some by crane. They lift them up with a tall crane, and they play them around the square. They were going to hang 837 people. And I gave them the word, if you hang one person, even one person, that you're going to be hit right then and there. I wasn't waiting 2 weeks and negotiating. And they gave up the hanging. They didn't hang 837. Supposedly, they didn't hang anybody. But no, I feel very badly for the people of Iran. They've lived in hell. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned multiple times foreign influence over the Supreme Court. Do you have evidence of that? And if not, will you investigate that?
You're going to find out.
You're going to find out.
What alternatives are you going to put into place in your relationship with Europe and also those tariffs that has been called illegal? How they're going to go impact the relationship with Russia, that you sanctions?
Well, I want Europe to strengthen up. Europe has gone woke. Europe is not recognizable when you go into so many places. Not all countries. You look at
gone hyper woke.
You look at Hungary. You look at Poland.
They ain't doing too well.
Slovakia. There are some countries that have gone very much the opposite. Some really, and some others.
Yeah, Romania, I think, is another one.
And they become soft and
that's
not
doing well.
recognizable. You go into some of the countries, I don't want to be specific, but I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. And they're not recognizable. They become, the environmentalists have taken over. They've got windmills destroying their fields and their beautiful meadows and their oceans, and they're paying a fortune. Now, Europe has to get smart. Europe's getting killed on two things, energy and immigration. And if they don't solve both of them fast, Europe is not the same place. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, Justices Gorsuch and Barrett, are you surprised in particular by their decision today? And do you regret nominating them?
I don't want to say whether or not I regret. I think their decision was terrible. Yeah.
Mr. President.
I think it's an embarrassment to their families. You want to know the truth? The two of them. Yeah.
Wow.
Specifically on that $2,000 tariff check.
Mr. President,
I didn't call you.
You didn't call me?
Yeah, Mr. President, to be clear, do you believe at the end
you didn't call me?
Of implementing these new tariff tools, the tariff rate and tariffs will ultimately be higher than they currently are?
Potentially higher.
How much higher?
It depends, whatever we want them to be. But we want them to be fair for other countries. And, you know, we have some countries that have treated us really badly for years. And it's going to be high for them. And we have other countries that have been very good, and it's going to be very reasonable for them. Yeah.
So specifically on the tariffs question, I mean on the $2,000.
I didn't call you.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. Do you have any plans to travel to India for the Quad Summit, and how do you think your relationship with India is right now?
I think my relationship with India is fantastic. And we're doing trade with India. India pulled out of Russia. You know, India was getting its oil from Russia, right? And they pull way back at my request
that was a
because
big
we want
deal.
to settle that horrible war where 25,000 people are dying every month. And my relationship with Prime Minister Modi is, I would say, great. I also stopped a war between India and Pakistan, as you know.
Yep.
There were 10 planes we shot down. That war was going and probably going nuclear. And just yesterday, the Prime Minister of Pakistan said President Trump saved 35 million lives by getting them to stop. That's and I did it largely with tariffs. I said, look, you're going to fight, that's fine, but you're not going to do business with the United States, and you're going to pay a 200% tariff, each country. And they called up and they said, we have made peace.
Peace through strength.
I just want to thank you all. Look, great certainty has been brought back to the economy of the United States and actually the economy of the world, because we generate so much in the world. We're the biggest in the world, and we're now the strongest by far. We were a country that was dead 1.5 years ago. Now we have the hottest country in the world. We're going to keep it that way. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Somebody fires off one more question, but he doesn't take it.
32,000 were killed in Iran, sir?
Yeah, something about like 52,000 killed in Iran or whatever. So anyway, that's the remarks. That's the Q&A. And we'll go ahead and roll down to Secretary Scott Bessent from Eric Daugherty. He just stunned the experts. He and Trump have been making big plans, and it's full steam ahead. Tariff revenue will be unchanged in 2026. Let's be clear about what today's ruling was and what it wasn't, despite the misplaced gloating for Democrats. Anyway, these are all just quotes, so we'll just hear it from him.
I would also like to take a moment to address today's Supreme Court ruling, and I would note that I did not change a single word in my speech post the ruling. President Trump will always put our national security and Americans first. And as I have said before, the president has multiple tools in his toolbox. Let's be clear about what today's ruling was and what it wasn't. Despite the misplaced gloating from Democrats, ill-informed media outlets, and the very people who gutted our industrial base, the court did not rule against President Trump's tariffs. 6 justices simply ruled that IEEPA authorities cannot be used to raise even $1 of revenue. This administration will invoke alternative legal authorities to replace the IEEPA tariffs. We will be leveraging Section 232 and Section 301 tariff authorities that have been validated through thousands of legal challenges. Treasury's estimates show that the use of Section 122 authority, combined with potentially enhanced Section 232 and Section 301 tariffs, will result in virtually unchanged tariff revenue in 2026. And
well, there you go. I mean, he sounded quite confident about that, just like President Trump, Jameson Greer. I mean, they seem quite confident that this decision isn't going to throw a massive wrench into the whole tariff system and everything that Trump has laid out. That things it's still going to go full steam ahead, except it just has to be written differently. And the tariffs that do have to be changed, it has to go through a longer process. I don't know if it's going to be a litigation process or if it's just going to be what Trump said, an investigative process to determine exactly how much perhaps that the tariffs will have to be raised. And as Trump said, many of these countries that he imposed tariffs on, maybe after the investigation is concluded, perhaps we're going to have to charge them even more tariffs than we were already. So we'll just have to wait and see. Paul A. Cispula, the Supreme Court strikes down President Trump's current use of tariffs. It was an unexpected ruling. There are already contingency plans. Trump is always many steps ahead. Tariffs will continue in many different ways, which is great news for America.
We do. We've got a very fractured opinion, but initially what it says, we know it's authored, the primary opinion, by the Chief Justice, and says essentially that this IEEPA, this law that grants the president emergency powers, did not, it looks like by this first blush reading by the Chief Justice here, does not give him the power to levy these tariffs that he's levied. Part of this initial opinion says the words regulate and importation. The president says that gives him the independent power to impose tariffs on imports from any country, any product, any rate, any time. These words, it says, cannot bear such weight. We know we've got a dissent by Justice Kavanaugh, by Thomas and Alito, it looks like, and those were the 3 we thought during the arguments, if anyone would be persuaded to allow the president to move forward with these tariffs, they would be the ones to do it. So at first blush, like I said, there are multiple parts and concurrences to this opinion, but it looks like what the primary holding is going to be is that these tariffs cannot be used in the way that the president had tried to use them. Let me get you to the closing paragraph that we have in this initial opinion here. It says, the president asserts the extraordinary power to unilaterally impose tariffs of unlimited amount, duration, and scope. In light of the breadth, history, and constitutional context of that asserted authority, he must identify clear congressional authorization to exercise it, meaning if he wants to do it, he's got to show that Congress has allowed him to do it. But they say IEPA, this emergency powers law, contains no reference to tariffs or duties. The government points to no statute in which Congress used the word regulate to authorize taxation. And until now, no president has ever read IEPA to confer such powers. We claim no special competence in matters of economics or foreign affairs, but we claim only, as we must, the limited role assigned to us by Article 3 of the Constitution. Fulfilling that role, we hold that IEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. We'll keep reading. That is the first blush, authored by the Chief Justice John Roberts.
Okay, well, if that's the case, if IEPA was never used by a previous president with regard to tariffs, and if IEPA doesn't mention the use of tariffs or charging another country any amount of money, then perhaps President Trump already foresaw that and decided to impose the tariffs using IEPA, maybe even expecting it to get struck down by the Supreme Court because that precedent hadn't been set before. And now that an X amount of months have been rolling on, that these countries have been paying the tariffs, it may have not been fully normalized to this point yet, but they've already been paying tariffs for a period of time. This allows him to essentially keep the tariffs in place as they are as he rewrites the new set of tariffs under the different statutes or the different acts or what have you. So I'm going to take a quick look at the Dow Jones and at the stock market just to see if it moved at all after this announcement. And no, it didn't go down at all. Matter of fact, it went up 230 points. The Dow Jones Industrial Average did. The S&P is up to 6909. It went up. The only thing that went down was the Russell. What is that, Russell 200? Or the Russell 2000, I mean. So, I mean, it barely dropped, like by 0.049%. So it only dropped like a single point today. So the stock market wasn't really phased. Now, look, I mean, Monday could be a very different story. I mean, Monday, it could maybe take a massive hit. I would almost expected it to take a massive hit. If not today, then come Monday, because, you know, the tariffs, it's all about the economy. And, you know, the stock market, in many ways, it involves the global economy. So we'll just have to wait and see about what might happen with that on Monday. So Bo Loudon, breaking Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, just pointed out President Trump still has many other avenues to impose tariffs going forward, despite the Supreme Court's decision to strike down tariffs, which we already know. Maybe this is just a different point of view.
Justice Thomas and Alito says this: the court's decision is likely to generate serious practical consequences in the near term. One issue is the refunds. Refunds of billions of dollars would have significant consequences for the U.S. Treasury, but the court today says nothing about whether, and if so, how the government should go about returning the billions of dollars it's collected from importers. That process is likely to be...
That's interesting. So Brett Kavanaugh mentioned that in his dissent, that it wasn't applied in the decision at all with regard to what happens to all the revenue that was collected.
As was acknowledged at oral argument. So we have the big
It's almost as if the liberal justices were like, oh yeah, we didn't really think about that.
What happens next?
All right, well, we're ready to get more answers. Shannon Bream.
Yep, I don't know, man. It kind of makes you wonder. I mean, that was probably my first question that I came up with when I heard that the tariffs were going to be, or the decision came down the way it came down. My first thought was that. It was like, okay, well, what happens to all that money then? All right, Devori Darkins, former Deputy Assistant AG John Yoo says there is still hope that Trump can reimpose tariffs after the Supreme Court ruled against them. Actually, President Trump could turn around tomorrow and start the process of reimposing tariffs. He doesn't need new legislation from Congress. There are a bunch of federal statutes, which we already know by now. So we'll hear what he has to say.
The refund process is going to be, right, the mother of all refund tax seasons, and this is going to be a disaster. But that's up for another day. That's up to the lower courts. In terms of the future, I would actually say, Dana, and I teach trade law.
Yeah, essentially what that sounds to me, that the lower courts, maybe it just has to be a company by company basis, or importer, exporter entities, or whoever who's paying those tariffs. It sounds like they're going to have to go and litigate that on their own to try to request or try to get a ruling for a refund. And if they're granted one, then maybe they get one. Maybe it does have to be a company by company basis, or maybe a number of companies do a class action thing. I don't know.
Business law for my sins at Berkeley when I don't get to teach the Constitution. When I teach those, I teach the students. Actually, President Trump could turn around tomorrow and start the process of reimposing tariffs. He doesn't need new legislation from Congress. There are a bunch of federal statutes. They go by fancy terms like Super 301 and Section 232. There are a bunch of existing trade laws. In fact, President Trump can use IEEPA itself. Again, the thing the court is saying is that you have to do it in a certain way. You have to use the trade laws to be specific as to a country and what that country is doing. Is that country a national security threat? So, for example, under the IEEPA law itself, the United States has pursued not tariffs, complete embargoes, 100% cutoffs of trade with countries like Iran, Cuba, and North Korea. If President Trump wanted to cut China off entirely, as some people, I think, in his administration would love, he can use the IEEPA statute to do that. And if he wants to impose more fine-tuned tariffs of 10%, 20%, he can use these other trade laws that I've been talking about that are sitting on the books.
I mean, look, some Americans might make that argument that, you know what, maybe we should just cut off the whole damn world and just run everything from within. I think that would probably be a lot more devastating than it would be beneficial for most. I'm sure it would do wonders for some companies, but then others, it would probably not do so well, especially after that they've already spread out. So many of our companies and so much of our influence has already been dissolved in our country and spread out around the world. Maybe 50, 60, 75 years ago, maybe we'd be talking a whole different scenario because almost everything that we enjoyed back then was already made in America. So breaking, U.S. Supreme Court shoots down President Trump's sweeping tariffs in a 6-3 ruling. It's a devastating loss. Well, I mean, maybe not so devastating. Kavanaugh wrote in a 63-page dissent. Roberts, Gorsuch, and Barrett joined the liberals. Billions of dollars will now be missed out on. Not necessarily. I mean, that's a real-time moolah. Not familiar with this account. I just came across it when I was grabbing everything. Okay, so it's a very, very small account, only like 250 followers. So it's just some everyday person giving their own personal opinion. So I'm not sure what this
emergency
clip is.
petition. And
maybe we already heard this.
That, Justice Gorsuch, his concurrence is 46
No, maybe
pages
not.
long, and that prompted this pretty tough response from Barrett. And Kavanaugh's dissent is 63 pages long. It's like the justices had a lot to say. And what do you think about the breakdown of how this case went? An emergency petition.
Okay, all right, whatever. So there wasn't a whole lot to hear there. All right, so let's move on to the officials and the politicians and all of these folks. So from Vice President J.D. Vance, how did he chime in on this? Today, the Supreme Court decided that Congress, despite giving the president the ability to regulate imports, actually didn't mean it. This is lawlessness from the court, plain and simple. And its only effect will be to make it harder for the president to protect American industries and supply chain resiliency. President Trump has a wide range of other tariff powers, and he will use them to defend American workers and advance this administration's trade priorities. And from Speaker Mike Johnson, no one can deny that the president's use of tariffs has brought in billions of dollars and created immense leverage for America's trade strategy and for securing strong reciprocal America First trade agreements with countries that have been taking advantage of American workers for decades. Congress and the administration will determine the best path forward in the coming weeks. So maybe there might be a pathway to maybe see some things through with regard to tariffs by going through Congress. Really, the biggest brick wall that's in the way of any of that being a possibility is the filibuster, because these Democrat senators are not going to move on anything. Like anything that Trump needs done or wants done or anything the country, frankly, needs done, they're not going to move an inch on it. They're just going to act as a brick wall, which is extremely frustrating. All right, so we got this from Mike Lee. Senator Mike Lee from Utah. I don't love tariffs. I'm leery of Congress ceding authority to the executive branch. I consider IEEPA a horribly written law, but today's ruling was wrong. IEEPA gives the president power to regulate importation, and that has always encompassed the power to impose tariffs. And from Stephen Hayes, he was responding to this post. Among the key questions now, how many congressional Republicans who secretly oppose Trump's tariffs, there are many, including leaders, will be emboldened by the Supreme Court's decision to say what they believe. My guess, not many. I don't know, man. Maybe that's a fair point. I guess we'll just have to keep our eye out on it. Over the weekend, I may just end up doing that this weekend. I may follow. Look, I was actually trying to grab some other Republican politicians. Ted Cruz was one. oh hell, there was like 4 or 5 that I was specifically looking for. Jim Jordan was another one. And they didn't say a word about the decision from the Supreme Court today. And that was as of maybe an hour and a half before I started recording. And maybe this weekend, I'll probably go through a lot of the Republicans' posts that they have made, probably tomorrow, and see if there's any movement as to what they believe, whether if it was a good decision or a bad decision. I don't know. I'm not so sure. I'll just have to play all that by ear. It's not 100%. Anyway, from Rand Paul, the Supreme Court makes plain what should have been obvious. The power to impose tariffs is very clearly a branch of the power to tax. And he grabs this opinion from the court, and it says the power to impose tariffs is very clearly a branch of the taxing power. Gibbons versus Ogden, Wheat, let's see, 1201-1824. A tariff, after all, is a tax levied on imported goods and services. Congressional Research Service, so on and so forth. Then tariffs raise revenue, the defining feature of a tax, United States versus, so on and so forth. A lot of lingo in it. But anyway, he also has this from earlier today. In defense of our republic, the Supreme Court struck down using emergency powers to enact taxes. This ruling will also prevent a future president, such as AOC, from using emergency powers to enact socialism. I don't know if that's exactly true. If they pack the courts, then it doesn't matter what they want to have done. They will just see through it, or see to it that they do get that done. Because at the end of the day, the justices will rule however they rule. And I mean, if it sets a new precedent, it sets a new precedent. I don't think that really changes anything. I mean, if we get to a point where someone like AOC is the president and they're trying to roll through socialism, do you think that they're not going to pack the Supreme Court and basically get anything rolled through that they damn well please? Anything their hearts desire? I'm sure they will. So Craig Kaplan, which is who Rand Paul was responding to, Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that President Trump does not have the legal authority to impose global tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Chief Justice Roberts wrote for the majority, the IEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. Justices Alito, Kavanaugh, and Thomas dissented. And of course, he tagged in that PDF of the decision. U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell, and check out how badly he got ratioed, man, 3-1, 5,000 likes that he got for this post, but he got 15,000 people commenting on his words here. And he says, today the Supreme Court reaffirmed authority that has rested with Congress for centuries. The American people already know that tariffs make building and buying here at home more expensive, and Kentuckians understand this painful reality better than most. But the use of IEPA to circumvent Congress in the imposition of tariffs, already without precedent, isn't just bad policy, it's also illegal. And he even decides to give his full statement. So there's an article for you. That'll be linked below if you want to take a look at that. And look, just a quick comment on this, like that tariffs make building and buying here at home more expensive, maybe in some instances, but tariffs also force American-based companies to return home and employ thousands of American citizens. Tariffs also heavily incentivizes foreign companies to move operations inside the United States and employ thousands of American citizens. And by the way, everything those companies build and produce, they aren't subject to any tariffs whatsoever. None. All right, so anyway, Mike Pence, even he's chiming in on this. Today's 6-3 ruling by the Supreme Court is a victory for the American people and a win for the separation of powers enshrined in the Constitution of the United States. In Learning Resources, Inc. versus Trump, our Supreme Court has reaffirmed that the Constitution grants Congress, not the president, the power to tax. American families and American businesses pay American tariffs, not foreign countries. With this decision, American families and businesses can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm proud of the work our organization, American Freedom, has done on this case through our robust amicus brief program to advance economic freedom and defend the Constitution. With this historic decision, America can now return to the pursuit of free trade with free nations under the Constitution of the United States. Well, and first off, with regard to free trade with free nations, look, I don't think that they meant literally free monetarily, but they meant free as in the liberty to do so. In foreign countries, they do pay tariffs, Mike Pence. I'm surprised you didn't know that. And if a company raises their products by, let's say, 30% because they want Americans to pay for it, well, guess what? Don't buy that product. And then they won't sell that product anymore, and then they'll go out of business. But they make it sound like tariffs have skyrocketed everything in the last year, when in reality, only a few products have moved up in price marginally. Just about everything hasn't been largely affected by the tariffs. I think some building materials for housing, like lumber, I think copper, but finished copper, like copper pipes or something like that, has gone up by like a sizable percentage, like, I don't know, 10, maybe 15, I don't know. But I believe like lumber went up by like 10%. I think they were attributing that to the tariffs, and some car parts have gone up because of tariffs, among a few other things. But largely, everyday Americans haven't been financially decimated over the tariffs. With regard to, the financial hardship that we're dealing with, the vast majority of that came out of the COVID era and after the Biden administration. So let's move on to some of the Democrats. The Ways and Means Democrats. Breaking: the highest court in the land has affirmed what we long argued. Trump never had the authority to unilaterally jack up costs by hundreds of dollars on the American people. Democrats will never stop fighting for the rule of law and to lower costs for workers and families. Democrats never, I don't think ever in the history of the Democratic Party have they ever lowered costs for anybody in any way, shape, or form. They don't lower taxes. I already looked that up a couple of weeks ago on the Swamp. The last time that a Democratic president signed legislation into law that specifically lowered taxes to Americans was back in 1952. It's been decades and decades since a Democrat president has lowered taxes for Americans. They don't lower shit. They only make things more expensive. Why do you think in blue states, they're the most expensive states in the country to live in by a long shot? Because Democrats, they don't make shit cheaper. They make shit more unaffordable. So U.S. Rep. Kathy Castor, Trump never should have inflicted higher costs and pain on the American people. The affordability squeeze is real, and this unlawful tariffs make it worse. My neighbors deserve better. And PBS News, probably they're generic, whatever. The U.S. Supreme Court on Friday struck down President Trump's global tariffs, a key part in his economic agenda during his second term. So, they make it sound like that all of his tariffs are completely off the table. They've all been struck down. His presidency is now in shambles. No, that's not actually the case at all. 6-3 decision from the court came in a case that challenged the administration's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose tariffs. And those are just quotes that I'm sure we've already heard. So we'll just head on to the next Democrat from Chuck Schumer. A victory for the wallets of every American consumer. Trump's illegal tariff tax just collapsed. He tried to govern by decree and stuck families with the bill. Enough chaos in the trade war. And from NBC News, Supreme Court strikes down most of Trump's tariffs in a major blow to the president. The decision does not affect all of Trump's tariffs, but invalidates those implemented using an emergency law. Well, at least they threw that in there. All right, so Senator Cory Booker, for nearly half a year, Trump abused. Oh, he's abusing our trade tools to curry favors with foreign officials and exact revenge on his rivals, all while America's working families and small businesses paid the price. Trump raised the cost on everything. Literally everything has raised in cost, from the food we eat, which, by the way, 85% of the food that we eat is produced right here in America. 85% of the drinks that we enjoy are made right here in America, not subject to tariffs. And we eat to the clothes we wear, and also failed to bring back good-paying jobs or fix our broken economy. I'm glad the Supreme Court has ruled what we've all known. This administration cannot ignore the rule of law and Congress's role to protect America's economy from reckless and chaotic tariffs. Supreme Court strikes down Trump's sweeping tariffs, of course, from the New York Times. They want to make it sound like that it was completely across the board. They just wiped the table completely off of tariffs. No more tariffs ever again. Not for the history of Trump's presidency. And the future history of Trump's presidency. Okay, so Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, no Supreme Court decision can undo the massive damage that Trump's chaotic tariffs have caused. The American people paid for these tariffs, and the American people should get their money back. Yeah, I don't know. I would not be the least bit surprised if they're going to start talking reparations. Americans deserve reparations now. So anyway, Sam Stein, he drops this letter from Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois. Pritzker demands a $1,700 refund per family for the people of Illinois after Trump's tariffs were ruled unconstitutional. So let's take a look at this. President Trump, your tariff taxes wreaked havoc on farmers, enraged our allies. Well, wait a minute, wreaked havoc on farmers. Didn't Trump himself just say that he gave farmers specifically $12 billion worth of tariff revenue? Enraged our allies and sent grocery prices through the roof. No, that's actually not true either. As I already said, 85% of all of our groceries are produced right here in the United States. Things that are produced inside of the United States are not subject to tariffs in any way, shape, or form. This morning, your hand-picked Supreme Court justices notified you that they are also unconstitutional. On behalf of the people of Illinois, I demand a refund of $1,700 for every family in Illinois. There's 5,105,448 households in my state, bringing the total damages you owe to $8,679,261,600. The Supreme Court has ruled that this is yet one more unconstitutional act by you and your administration. This letter and the attached invoice stand as an official notice that compensation is owed to the people of Illinois, and if you do not comply, we will pursue further action. Yeah, dude, good luck with that. If you're going to stand on jacked up groceries and farmers not getting paid, Yeah, good luck with that, dude. That ain't going to stand for a second because, yeah, like the vast, vast, vast majority of our food has nothing to do with tariffs at all. It has a lot to do with Biden, though. It has a lot to do with illegal immigrants. When you import, 15 to 20 million illegal immigrants, they all got to eat something now, don't they? All right, so Brian Allen, Gavin Newsom isn't mincing words. Quote, Trump owes families their money back, $1,751 per household. Trump illegally taxed working Americans through tariffs, took hundreds of billions, got caught, and got ruled against. Now he needs to return every dollar. No excuses, no delays. So this should be fun.
As it relates to the tariffs were illegal from day one. We were in Fresno. We were the first state. I was the first governor to announce the lawsuit with Attorney General Bonta on the illegal tariffs under the emergency authority that Donald Trump was asserting. Shocking to me that 3 members of the Supreme Court actually agreed with Donald Trump. There's nothing in the International Economic Emergencies Power
He's just
Act
playing up the drama.
that gives the President of the United States unilateral authority to impose a tax increase on ranchers, on farmers, on small businesses.
Yeah, but they reaped the benefits of the tariffs directly, dude, in the form of billions and billions of dollars. But nice try.
Donald Trump should return that money immediately. He has an obligation, $1,751 per family.
He makes it sound like that you paid $1,700 directly to tariffs. I paid $1,700 directly to tariffs. I think, isn't the majority of people who ended up having to directly pay tariffs are import-export companies?
But were taxed by Donald Trump. He took hundreds of billions of dollars from working folks, from the ag community, from small businesses, for this vanity play, this illegal action. And he finally was held to account. The rule of law won out.
Yeah, I would love to see them try to play that out in court. That would be laughably stupid. Okay, so this is from End Wokeness. The Supreme Court blocked it, but it did not stop me. That was what Joe Biden said.
Blocked me from relieving student debt, but they didn't stop me. So far, I've relieved student debt for nearly 5 million Americans. A significant number are black borrowers.
Yeah, so I relieve student debt for black people only. So yeah, because that's totally constitutional. And from End Wokeness, another one, the Biden administration should ignore the court, said AOC in 2023.
There has been thought, I believe, given to this. Senator Ron Wyden has already issued statements, for example, advising what we should do in a situation like this, which I concur, which is that I believe that the Biden administration should ignore this ruling. I think that we,
They should ignore the Supreme Court ruling. Just ignore it. Well, because they're a bunch of, racist conservative judges, right?
The courts have the legitimacy and they rely on the legitimacy of their rulings. And what they are currently doing is engaged in an unprecedented and dramatic erosion of the legitimacy of the courts. It is the justices themselves, through the deeply partisan and unfounded nature of these rulings, that
yeah, you're right. The liberal justices are very partisan.
Own enforcement.
So you're saying the Biden administration should ignore this court, but what does that look like? What does that actually mean?
I think the interesting thing when it comes to a ruling is that it relies on enforcement.
Yep, and I already know that Democrats have been talking about this for a long time. They're like, well, yeah, but the Supreme Court can't just unilaterally enforce what they've ruled on. It's essentially like an opinion. So if we just decide, fuck the Supreme Court, we're just going to do it anyway. What the hell's the Supreme Court going to do? Well, we don't know because we've never really had an administration that just gave the middle finger to the Supreme Court. We're just going to do it anyway. So we don't really know what that looks like. So maybe we should try that if we can't pack the Supreme Court.
And it is up to the Biden administration to choose whether or not to enforce such a ruling.
Well, there you go, man. There's no limit to how evil these Democrats can really get. From D.C. Drano, SCOTUS said certain tariffs can't be applied under one single statute, but there are many others available. Stay the course. From townhall.com, Jonathan Turley, there's a lot of runway still for the administration. The administration has other tools in its toolbox that can actually impose tariffs under other statutes.
The administration has other tools in its toolbox. It can actually impose tariffs
as the Treasury Secretary said too.
So this night is hardly over for the administration when it comes to tariffs.
No, yeah, it's not. They just have to move some other things around. The Supreme Court struck down President Trump's tariffs, which we probably
we
did. We already saw that at the beginning of the video. And moving to C3, Justice John Roberts sided with the Democrats on 3 of the most important and damaging decisions in the last 100 years. Number 1 was Obamacare. Number 2, citizenship on the census. You remember that? And Trump's tariffs. As we watch lower court activist judges run their insurrection, traitor. And Brianna Lyman, as they interpret the statute, the president could, for example, block all imports from China, but cannot order even $1 tariff on goods imported from China. That approach does not make much sense, said Justice Kavanaugh. And this is from Watch Doge, a commentary account. The Supreme Court's ruling is a temporary speed bump, not a roadblock. Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh understand that strategic tariffs are leverage, not weakness. The initial 60% tariffs forced China to drop their duties from 125% all the way down to 10%. There's hit a historic reset. Now, Section 232, national security tariffs, and Section 301, unfair trade practices, remain fully operational. The Treasury's $500 billion+ annual tariff haul proves this isn't about legal technicalities, it's about results. The pressure worked. Concessions were locked in, and reshoring is accelerating. The court's decision changes tactics, not the end game. Dominance through disciplined escalation. Moving on to the next, Sean Davis, correct. Kavanaugh's dissent provides a roadmap for Trump to implement the same tariffs, just so long as he cites different laws and checks a few different boxes on the paperwork. And he's responding to Andrew Colvett. Yes, SCOTUS ruled against President Trump on tariffs. I believe it ruled incorrectly. If a president can sanction other countries, he should be able to tariff them as well to counter them when they cheat at trade. But the sky isn't necessarily falling. President Trump has other mechanisms he can use to enact his tariff policies besides emergency declarations. And from Graphics, Ben Garrison, the cartoonist, the political cartoonist. Of course, Mike Pence cheered the SCOTUS ruling against Trump's tariffs. Of course. Judas Pence, the backstabber. Ben Garrison cartoon from 2021. So this was back in 2021 when he illustrated that. Doesn't look a whole lot different than it does now. No, not really. Then you got Bolton, you got Roberts, Geraldo, Cotton, Bush, McConnell, Graham, Kelly, Barr, so on and so on and so on. And we've got this. This is a message from President Trump on his Truth Social. The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing. I'm ashamed of certain members of the court for not having the courage to do what is right for our country. I would like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for your strength, wisdom, and love for our country, which is right now very proud of you. When you read the dissenting opinions, there is no way that anyone can argue against them. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic and dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no against anything that makes America strong and healthy again. They also are a disgrace to our nation. Others think they're being politically correct, which has happened before, far too often, with certain members of this court, when in fact they're just fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and radical left Democrats. And not that this should have anything to do with it, very unpatriotic and disloyal to the Constitution. It's my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests in a political movement that is far smaller than people would think, but obnoxious, ignorant, and loud. This was an important case to me, more as a symbol of economic and national security than anything else. The good news is that there are methods, practices, statutes, and other authorities, as recognized by the entire court and Congress, that are even stronger than the IEEPA tariffs, available to me as President of the United States of America. And in actuality, I was very modest in my ask of other countries and businesses because I wanted to do nothing that could sway the decision that has been rendered by the court. I have very effectively utilized tariffs over the past year to make America great again. Our stock market has just recently broke the 50,000 mark on the Dow and simultaneously 7,000 on the S&P, two numbers that everybody thought upon our landslide election victory could not be attained until the very end of my administration. 4 years. Tariffs have likewise been used to end 5 of the 8 wars that I settled, have given us great national security, and together with our strong border, reduced fentanyl coming into our country by 30%. When I use them as a penalty against countries illegally sending this poison to us. All of those tariffs remain, but other alternatives will now be used to replace the ones that the court incorrectly rejected. And we've got another one. To show you how ridiculous the opinion is, the court said that I'm not allowed to change even $1 to any country under IEEPA. I assume to protect other countries, not the United States, which they should be interested in protecting, but I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country, even imposing a foreign country destroying embargo and do anything else I want to do to them. How nonsensical is that? They are saying I have the absolute right to license, but not the right to charge a license fee. What license has ever been issued without the right to charge a fee? But now the court has given me the unquestioned right to ban all sorts of things from coming into our country, a much more powerful right than many people thought we had. Our country is the hottest anywhere in the world, but now I'm going in a different direction, which is even stronger than our original choice, as Justice Kavanaugh wrote in his dissent. Quote, although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That is because numerous other federal statutes authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs issued in this case. Those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act, which we already got through, the Trade Act and the Tariff Act. Thank you, Justice Kavanaugh. In actuality, while I am sure they did not mean to do so, the Supreme Court's decision today made a president's ability to both regulate trade and impose tariffs more powerful and crystal clear rather than less. There will no longer be any doubt, and the income coming in and the protection of our companies and country will actually increase because of this decision. Based on long-standing law and hundreds of victories to the contrary, the Supreme Court did not overrule tariffs. They merely overruled a particular use of IEEPA tariffs. The ability to block, embargo, restrict, license, or impose any other condition on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade with the United States under IEEPA has been fully confirmed by this decision. In order to protect our country, a president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past under the various other tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs, Section 232, and existing Section 301 tariffs remain in place and in full force and in effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we are also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America Great Again, President Donald J. Trump. A couple of very long-winded ones. Those might be a couple of the longer ones that I think he's ever put out. And from the White House, President Donald J. Trump imposes a 10% global tariff on all countries. It is my great honor to have just signed from the Oval Office a global 10% tariff on all countries, which will be effective almost immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump, which I believe he said at the podium that this 10% tariff will go into effect within 3 days, probably on Monday. And this is from Alex Jones. So let's get to the Howard Lutnick situation. And Alex Jones, Howard Lutnick needs to go bye-bye. Trump's tariff executive order was not worded properly, according to Justice Kavanaugh. And who wrote that executive order? Howard Lutnick. And then he bet against his own tariffs getting reversed and made billions of dollars. Let's have a look at this.
What saying is what the president did was constitutional, but in the executive order was not worded properly. And who wrote the executive order? Put him on screen, please.
Uh-oh.
Howard lied about going to Jeffrey Epstein's island, lived next door to him.
Yeah, he did.
Lutnick.
I forgot he lived next door to Jeffrey Epstein in New York.
I have...
that he did. Uh-oh.
It's really less than a year because it took a while to get everybody appointed. The last 10 months, I've sat back, I've watched... and I've said, I'm not sure who the villains are, who the good guys are. We have a very clear picture now, and I think you all agree with me. Howard Lutnick needs to go, bye-bye. Pam Bondi, bye-bye. If Trump doesn't want a scandal out of it, just
he obviously doesn't like Pam Bondi.
Tell him go up there to the Arctic Research Facility or something. Count. Go to the Antarctic. Count penguins and leopard seals. Just go away. Go, 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 go. Marvin K. Mooney, you must go now. I don't care how. Just go, 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 go. Bye-bye. But the Supreme Court in general has ruled with Trump because everything he's done has been so constitutional, but not in this case. But again, Trump has other emergency tariff powers under national security grounds, Section 232 tariffs, where you can do all the same stuff, but they'll have to be the big refunds, and this is a major blow to the economy. Though I predicted,
well, potentially,
it wasn't hard to predict. The stock market would like that. It's not
yeah, and you know what? There's no doubt about it that there will be companies that are going to immediately be filing for refunds. I mean, why wouldn't they? Especially if they've already paid millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. They're going to, I mean, like that's what companies are all about. They're all about maximizing profit.
Not really reflective of Main Street. It's reflective of the globalists and business as usual for them. And so that's where we are.
Well, and also how this plays out. How many companies have either directly invested already into manufacturing it into the country after receiving tariffs in their countries, as well as the pledges that have been made by companies where they haven't invested the money. I mean, how many of these companies are going to start withdrawing their pledges? Or I would assume that in the short term, they're probably just going to hold them where they are until they see what these revised tariffs are going to look like down the road, because it wouldn't look very good if they removed their financial interests and then Trump puts the same, if not even worse, tariffs on them 6 weeks or 6 months down the road. So I don't know. It's all kind of up in the air, and President Trump seemed to allude to that also, that we're just going to have to see how this all kind of shakes out in the near term, or the near future.
Right. We did some searches ourselves and didn't find anybody else in the administration that bet against this except Howard Lutnick. So that's good. We're glad
Yeah,
Don
that's
Jr.
fucking wild, man.
Eric and all them aren't in here.
I hope he explains this. Look, if Alex Jones doesn't explain what Howard Lutnick's son did, I'll look it up. I came across a number of posts. I didn't include them because they didn't directly have to do with Trump's announcement on the tariffs, but I'll take a look at it. I was hoping that he would explain it in this video, but we still have another minute left.
But it still needs to be examined, because I'm going to get really upset about that if that's the case.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going to have to look it up then, shall I? Or, oh, but wait a minute. Maybe not. Maybe this will explain it. Okay, so, all right, hold on here. Me, Kevin. All right, so take a look at this. This is the post that I'm going to read here on the right-hand side. Howard Lutnick's family firm bought up the rights to tariff refunds for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar after Liberation Day last year. Today, the Supreme Court struck the tariffs down. For every $100 invested, Lutnick's sons just made 3 to 5x. Welcome to crony corrupt America. So, yeah, like I explained at the beginning of the video, they ended up using like a bank that they own or something to buy up these like tariff purchases or something like that from companies, and in a roundabout way, it allows them to essentially like triple or quadruple or even more the amount of money that they paid for these tariff interests now that the tariffs have fallen through. So apparently Howard Lutnick had an enormous financial advantage if the tariffs got struck down by the Supreme Court. And if that's true, that he actually wrote like all of the tariff language or Trump's executive orders, then that's really effed up, man. That's absolutely crazy. President Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's family just made billions by betting against Trump's tariffs that were written by their father. Bottom line, this is next level insider trading and another major scandal for Lutnick after lying about his relationship with Epstein. So let me just give this a minute or two and see if he might elaborate on any details.
Wall Street bet against the Trump tariffs. You mean Lutnick and Bessent's sons and all of them did? Oh, they're all in on it. The sons are all being used as the
Bessent's sons too?
He and his family made gigantic bets that this would get reversed, because it does destroy the heart of the globalist takeover and ends our economic surrender. And Lutnick was always a Democrat and always for those bad policies before. But suddenly he's all for it, and him and his buddies have made tens of billions now, it's estimated. Well, let me see. You got to pay back $175 billion at least. You got to pay it back with a whole bunch of penalty and interest. And then these are the guys that bought all that up from people that wanted to sell their insurance in it. So now the Lutnicks and others go and they collect on it. And you're the one that set the policy, because you knew the Supreme Court insiders were going to deep six it. You knew what would stand, what wouldn't. Insiders and experts predicted all this on my show. And you did it, Lutnick. Yeah, that's criminal, in my view.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, yeah, if you want to look up some of that on your own, maybe I might do something on that over the weekend also, with regard to like not only Howard Lutnick's sons, but Secretary Scott Bessent. Apparently his sons are involved in this also. Maybe. Look, like that wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, they don't call it the swamp for nothing. They don't call it the establishment for nothing. So anyway, let's go on and move on to the next from Gay Gallops. This is how you did it. Bravo, principal. Oh, wait, no, hold on. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Let's see. I'm just making sure, like, am I done with the tariffs? I think I'm done with the tariffs. I think that was the last thing that I had. And because it's the swamp and I was already prepping for the show before the announcement came out, I already gathered a number of things I decided to include it at the end of the video because why not? It's Friday night, I might as well just roll through the rest of what I had already prepared. So this is with regard to a high school in Pennsylvania. So bravo Principal Daniel Webster of Wilson High School in Pennsylvania for the brave action of shutting down what is very prevalent right now in anti-ICE walkout. Please more of this common sense.
We'll go back to class and we're good. If you stay out here, we will get your names. You will be suspended.
Suspended.
Okay? That is your option at this point. Because you are operating outside the bounds of what was granted. That event was canceled. You left school without permission. Your rights do
Yeah, that's
not
illegal.
supersede the
You could be arrested for that, right? Truancy.
So if you understand that, that is your option. If you wish to return, Dr. Damiani will let you in that door over there. If not, I will be getting your names. You will be suspended, okay? Those are your options. What are we doing? All right? Your rights do not exceed that of the school.
Absolutely not. You're freaking minors, for crying out loud. No, you're legally required to be at school. Otherwise, it's truancy, and I'm pretty sure you could be arrested for it, at least when I was in high school. If an officer caught you out and about, not a school officer, not a truancy officer, but a city cop saw you like walking down the sidewalk and you're skipping school, I don't know if they would full on like arrest you and take you downtown, but like they would absolutely take you into their custody. So anyway, let's move on to David J. Harris Jr. Good, a Mouthy High School protester learned the hard way after ignoring countless police orders to go with the principal, and she was arrested on the spot. She has no respect for authority. Hope she learned her lesson. Probably didn't.
These two right here, I need them in my office. Ma'am, you have to stop being disruptive. His office. No, you need to go to his office. I need them in my office. Go to his office. Let's go. No, you're not. You're going to his office. Why am I in trouble? Sir, you're not in trouble. Go to his office. Sir, no. Ma'am, I'm not going to argue with you. He's the principal. No, he's the principal. I'm reading. He has a valid reason. He's the principal of the school. That's not valid. Yep, ma'am. Because you go to his office, man. Because you don't think this thing is real. That's what we're fighting for. Let's go to his office. I should be going to class. No. He gave me directions to go to class. Now he's everybody else. Now he's telling you to go to. Stop recording me too. Stop recording me. It's my rights. Okay. And we have rights of protest. Okay, the protest is over with. Then let me go to class. No, go to class, ma'am. That's where I'm trying to go. No, ma'am, this is my last time doing this. You just said go to class. No, I said you go to his office. You said go to class. Go to his office. I'm going to class like everybody else in administration. Can I have a valid reason on why I'm going to the office? For a conversation. The school environment because he's trying to get them to go to his office so they can have a conversation. She refuses to go, and she refuses to go. We're walking to our class. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to this officer. I'm giving him the valid reason why y'all about to be placed in custody because y'all are disrupting the public school environment. I'm not talking to you. Can I talk to you? No, you cannot because you can go talk to the principal. But I'm supposed to be in class. No. I don't want to talk to the principal. That's my First Amendment. I'm not speaking to that man.
This officer earns every penny, man.
Brooklyn Lachey hearing. I'm a 12th grader and I should be in class. Can I go to class? No, he's 18. I don't know why we talking. Have you suspended? Suspended for what? Can I get a valid reason I should be suspended? No. I should have a reason on why I'm being suspended. That's not fair. Because he asked you to come with him. It's called he asked me to go to class. He asked you to go to with him, man. So if we go to his office and we have a conversation, am I really going to be sentenced? That's up to him. That's up to him. He's the man. So that's within. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, listen. We're not going back and forth with you. You want to get suspended? I shouldn't be going back.
Look, back in my day, if a girl wore anything showing her belly button, they would kick her out of school that day. They would make her parents come pick her up. I guess times have changed.
No, the case of me protesting because you say people's lives. Are you Hispanic? I don't have to be Hispanic to want to say people's lives. I'm just either you're going to go into the principal's office, but you're not going to class. That's crazy. You're not going to class. You might go to everybody else. We got issues here, and then we are going to class. Are you going to the principal's office now? No, I'm going to class. Okay, no, you're not going to class. Why not? Because we're
ask you to go to his office. You're not going to. So either you going to go is to his office or you going to go in my office.
So you're stopping me getting my education. Y'all stop.
This is my last time warning you. I'm not going to ask you
What's
again.
the warning for?
I'm asking you to go to his class, to go to his office. If you're not going to his office, then you are defying a police order and you're going to jail. I'm telling you that right now. I'm giving you the last opportunity. I'm giving you the last opportunity.
Uh-oh. No, she's going to jail now. Now you're going to catch a resisting charge. Oh, and then the cop snatched the phone. I told you to stop recording. Give me that phone. All right, so let's move on to Secretary Kirsten Noem, who is with the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats care more about scoring political points than the safety and security of the American people, and it's shameful. America deserves leaders who serve them, not selfish political theater.
Yeah, it's shocking to me, Sean, to hear them constantly speak on behalf of politics instead of the American people. And Americans are going to have a choice coming up here if they want to choose the Democrats' mass migration and infiltration of criminals, but not just criminals. We have thousands of known and suspected terrorists that the Biden administration let into this country. Or they can continue to choose President Trump, who's making our country safe again, who's making it more affordable for families to get into homes and to buy their groceries and put gas in their car. He's giving them safety back in their communities, and that's what the Department of Homeland Security does every single day. What Democrats have done by defunding this department is put our safety at risk right here on our own soil. We every day protect people in their communities, but also our cybersecurity is all through the Department of Homeland Security. Our Coast Guard is out doing interdictions on the water. We have stopped enough lethal doses of drugs from coming into this country that would have killed 1.7 billion people. That's what the department has done in conjunction with our law enforcement officers in protecting in just the last 12 months. And the Democrats are saying, nope, we want to play politics and we want to risk the lives of Americans.
Yeah, and you know what? If there's some terrorist attack that were to occur in the near future, guess who Democrats are going to blame it on? They're just going to ramp up that stupid brain-dead rhetoric that, oh my God, it's all Homeland Security's fault. It's all Trump's fault. It's always all Trump's fault, even though they shut down Homeland Security. Okay, townhall.com new Roy Cooper deploys entire team of aggressive staff to physically block people from asking about his decision to release violent criminals back into North Carolina. He really doesn't want to have to defend this.
Roy Cooper, why did you release 51 people set to serve life sentences?
Oh, that's assault.
Could you answer the question, please? Governor Cooper, why did you release 51 people serving life sentences? Governor Cooper, why did you release 51 people serving life sentences? Roy Cooper, why?
These people are such assholes. Those are Antifa tactics right there, trying to block any camera that's in their vicinity, except instead of using dopey political signs, they use black umbrellas. All right, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, new photos in deadly human trafficking case. These images reveal the human cost of open border policies. Illegal aliens were stuffed under false tops on trailers, and when one of them died, human smugglers dumped the body in a ditch. ICE HSI put an end to 36-year-old Erica Araceli Carmona's $4.7 million plus criminal operation that smuggled more than 500 illegal aliens into our country under the deadly open border policies of the Biden administration. Look at that, man. That's how they were smuggling them in. And so it's got, of course, like a false gravel top to make it look like that it's just a pile of gravel. And it's not. It's a false top. And they actually have illegal immigrants just stuffed in there. And if you can imagine, if it's during the summertime, I mean, I can only imagine how one of them ended up losing their lives, probably just being smothered or suffocated or heat stroke. So anyway, Secretary Sean Duffy, this is why we are working every day at U.S. Department of Transportation to put a stop to illegal truckers, chameleon carriers, and sham trucking schools to bring safety back on our roads. God bless Delilah Coleman and her father Marcus, a former trucker sharing his daughter's story to inspire real change. His message is powerful.
If you can't follow the rules of the road, you shouldn't be handed the keys to a car, let alone keys to an 80,000-pound tractor trailer. And if you're here illegally, you shouldn't be driving at all. Yet the bodies are piling up. as every week we seem to hear about another crash involving an illegal alien behind the wheel. Yesterday in Indiana, 64-year-old Terry Schultz was killed after a semi-truck reportedly ran a red light, then plowed into his car. The driver of that truck, Singh Sukhdeep, came here illegally from India. He was caught and released at the border in 2018, when Democrats, by the way, were suing to stop Donald Trump's border wall. A witness to the accident said she stayed with Terry until his final moments.
I made it my job to be calming to him and maybe try to keep him calm. He was unresponsive, but at some point, I think that he definitely took his last breath.
So upsetting. But more than that, it is infuriating. And now a new bombshell report finds that 20% of all commercial driver's licenses issued to non-citizens in Illinois were issued illegally. Well, another item on Pritzker's presidential resume. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has stepped in, telling the state to clean up its act or lose millions in federal funding. Look, this is not about politics, it's about competence. State officials have to enforce the standards that already exist, keep Americans safe. Here with reaction is Marcus Coleman. He's a former truck driver himself, but more importantly, the father of 7-year-old Delilah. She was 5 years old when an illegal alien driving an 18-wheeler
Yeah, they've had him on Fox a few times.
A multi-car crash,
I've played a few of his clips on this show.
Injuring his daughter. Marcus, the politicians who look the other way.
I'm glad they keep giving him a platform, man.
Politicians are looking the other way when this was
he's from
happening.
California. Governor Newsom's doing jack shit to help them.
It happened yesterday. What's your message to them tonight?
Correct. They need to pay attention. Just because it's happening to other people that are not close to them, little by little, it's getting closer and closer to home. This is starting to affect people in different states. It's starting to affect a lot more people. I explained to one of the politicians the other day that it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or anybody. You know, these circles come into people. It's getting pretty scary out there right now. And if we don't pay attention, it's going to become a major problem, bigger than it already is.
All right, so there's that. Yeah, he's been on Fox several times, not just on Lauren Ingraham, but on other shows on Fox News, where he's shared his story where they got into a nasty accident and his daughter almost lost her life, and she suffered pretty bad brain damage, and it was an illegal immigrant that struck their vehicle, of course. All right, so Western Lindsman Susan Rice offers a taste of what's coming should the left retake power. Promises Democrats will punish corporations and other institutions who have taken a knee to Trump. And it goes on to say, quote, it's not going to end well for them. Quote, if these corporations think that the Democrats, when they come back in power, are going to play by the old rules, they've got another thing coming. So let's hear what she has to say.
But
freaking
when
lunatic.
it comes to the elites, you know, the corporate interests.
Yeah, they're not all right-wingers, you bonehead.
The law firms, the
a lot
universities,
of them are
the media.
left-wingers.
I agree with you, Preet. It is not.
Look, all you got to do is just go back to, what was it, 2023? I think it was 2023 during the month of June, during Pride Month. Remember when tons of national companies and organizations, like they were all putting a rainbow flag in their logos. Everybody was doing it. It was all over the place. Coca-Cola, everybody. They were all involved in that. And, you know, like, just needless to say, those are not right-wing corporations. At least they're not being led by a bunch of right-wingers. That's for damn sure.
It's not going to end well for them. For those that decided that it was, you know, that they would act in their perceived very narrow self-interest, which I would underscore is very short-term self-interest, and, you know, take a knee to Trump. I think they're now starting to realize,
what does that even mean?
You know, this is not popular. Trump is not popular. What he is doing.
Yeah, he is. He got the popular majority, you dumb fuck.
Whether on the economy and affordability or on immigration.
His favorability is at 50%, a lot higher than Biden had.
And that there is likely to be a swing in the other direction. And they are going to be caught with more than their pants down. They're going to be held accountable by those who come in opposition to Trump and win at the ballot box. And I can tell you, Preet, you know, as I talk to leaders in Washington, leaders in our party, leaders in the states, if these corporations think that the Democrats, when they come back in power, are going to, you know, play by the old rules, and you know, and say, oh, never mind, we'll forgive you for all the people you fired, all the policies and principles.
Oh, so that's what this is all about. It's about DEI. Well, lady, that's illegal. It's illegal across the board. It violates the Civil Rights Act of what, 1964? It's a blatant violation, lady. You can't hire somebody based on what they look like or their sexual orientation. That's illegal.
You violated all.
But that's what she's talking about, obviously.
I think they've got another thing coming because, just like when Trump thought, okay, I'll redistrict and the Democrats won't have the guts to play hardball. They're going to be surprised. Democrats have had a belly full, and we're not going to play by, the old set of rules when these guys
you want
are playing
identity
by
politics
a very
to
different
come
set
back.
of rules. We're going to play by the law. But we're not going to violate the law.
Well, if you play by the law, you wouldn't be able to hire somebody based on what they look like, dumbass.
The way they do. But we're not going to be suckers. And so I think, whether you're a law firm, whether you're a university, whether you're a media entity, whether you're a big corporation, whether you're big tech, you need to play a long game, not this short game that.
Why do you got to be so fucking vague, man? Why don't you tell us whatever the hell that you're talking about? Instead of just trying to dance around all these stupid generalities and trying to paint everything with a broad freaking brush.
So detrimental. There will be an accountability agenda. Companies already are starting to hear they better preserve their documents. They better be ready for subpoenas if they've done something wrong.
Yeah. How dare you let somebody go? Like, dude, it's all about the lack of meritocracy. They don't want somebody to be hired based on the skill set and how good of a job that they can do.
They'll be held accountable. And if they
accountable for what?
Haven't broken the law, good for them. If they've done the right things, good for them. That also will be noted and remembered. But this is not going to be an instance of forgive and forget.
Right.
The damage that these people are doing is too severe to the American people and to our national interest.
Oh my God, dude, she could not possibly be any more vague and stupid. All right, so rapid response. Affordability is the number one priority for us, and we want to see lower drug prices. You saw on TrumpRx.gov the power of the MFN negotiations. The price of these drugs came down from as high as $1,300 a month down to $149 a month. Of course, that's select medications. That doesn't include all of the prescriptions that are across the board. Hopefully they'll get to that point. I can't say that they're certainly going to get to that point, but it'd sure be nice if we, paid our fair share of prescriptions across the board.
Well, first of all, affordability is the number one priority for us, and we want to see lower drug prices. You saw on TrumpRx the power of the MFN negotiations. That is President Trump demanding the best price in the developed world for Americans, as other countries have had. So the price of these drugs came down from as high as $1,300 a month down to $149 a month. Wow. In the Trump administration, we want to see American pharmaceutical companies thrive, and companies that do business in the United States thrive. These are the two highest spend drugs in the United States, these GLP-1 drugs. And so we want to see fair prices, a level playing field. And when copycat versions are made that are not FDA approved, we are going to crack down. And that's exactly what we did.
Yeah. And you know what? TrumpRx, it's a step in the right direction. It's a hell of a good start. And hopefully they'll just keep adding to it over time. Peter Navarro, President Trump's affordability reset has three prongs: deportations, deregulation, and disinflation. This is bringing housing back from the dead. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, deregulation would certainly be a huge step in the right direction. From what I've heard, up to 50% of the cost of a new house has to do with government regulations. Just that alone. If they stripped all the government regulations away from building a new house, it would only cost half as much, supposedly. And so deportations, at least for the rental markets. I'm sure that there weren't a sizable percentage of illegal immigrants that were taking out mortgages for homes, but maybe I'm wrong.
Policies didn't just hurt the housing market, they exploded housing affordability. Rents skyrocketed, mortgage rates spiked, homeowners got locked in, first-time buyers got locked out. Multifamily construction surged because millions of new renters flooded dense urban markets, while single-family housing stalled. That wasn't bad luck. That was bad Democrat policies. Trump's affordability reset, deportations, deregulation, disinflation, is bringing housing back from the dead. Housing starts just beat expectations. Single-family building is stabilizing. Mortgage rates are falling steadily, and the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage will soon fall below the critical 6% threshold. Meanwhile,
Still 5.5% is still
deportations
insane.
are easing rental demand in sanctuary cities.
Especially for a $400,000
In places
house.
like Los Angeles and Austin, rents are actually falling. That's not politics. That's supply and demand. And when the rent check stops rising, voters notice. Remember, Democrats created the affordability crisis.
Yes, that they
Donald
did.
Trump is ending it.
Yeah, they very much did. And of course, COVID played a part, especially depending on where you live. Where I live in the state of Florida, that was a major problem because we opened up in Florida fairly early, and a lot of people flooded down here from blue states, which as far as the housing market went, that was kind of terrifying because the housing supply in the state of Florida in like 2021 had only dropped to like about 6,500 houses statewide. And right now we're sitting at like 250,000 houses that are empty right now. Well, not empty, but for sale, currently for sale. But the other part that was kind of unnerving was the amount of people that were moving down here in such a short amount of time, and they were coming from blue states. So there was a lot of worries that COVID was going to cause Florida to flip blue, but no, it got redder. It got a lot redder, actually. So that was kind of nice. Anyway, from Matt Van Swol, just a reminder that thousands of Amish from Pennsylvania spent an entire year rebuilding Western North Carolina for free after Hurricane Helene, and not a single mainstream media outlet covered it. Their last tiny home was delivered to David Hostetter, a Vietnam veteran. That's cool.
About 50
haven't
people
heard of
from
this.
the Amish community spread out across Chimney Rock and surrounding mountain towns. A new group of them coming down from their homes in Pennsylvania every week, sawing, nailing, building back communities destroyed by Helene.
And out of 40, 50 Amish people, you probably got 5 different trades that are skilled, crafted workers. Either brick masons, decks, roofers, concrete work.
Brad Marshall with Christian nonprofit organization and disaster response group Spokes of Hope says their faith responders line up the work, resources, and material, and the Amish help get the jobs done.
And at the end of the week, we've got 15, 20 jobs done, and hopefully about 8 or 10 people back in their homes.
Main Street here actually used to be full of about 6 feet of mud.
Business owners like Kristen Sotilli say this kind of help is what will ultimately get the village back up and running.
I don't know what we would have done without them. I mean, you know, not having to pay for labor and just having the help surmounts anything that we could be grateful for.
And homeowners like Bill Piercy, who had damage from a mudslide, say the Amish know how to build for the future. So if another storm rolls through, the community is better prepared.
They're hard workers and they're craftsmen, and they do it and they do it right. And so we're just really blessed.
The entire village of Chimney Rock is essentially a construction site, but business owners here say progress is being made, and they hope to reopen by this summer.
Damn, that's amazing. Did you know that? I didn't know that. I didn't know that the Amish was down there helping to rebuild. And you know they're rebuilding much better quality structures than any of the home construction industry, the quote-unquote experts and the companies that are building all these neighborhoods out. You know, those things are built like freaking toothpicks compared to, I'm sure, what the Amish are building. You know, those houses they're rebuilding, I'm sure, are going to stand for hundreds of years probably. From the EIA, U.S. electric generating capacity may reach a record high in 2026, with a total of 86 gigawatts of new utility-scale capacity additions planned. And it looks like we've got... Oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. Let's see. Okay, and here's the link. And it looks like solar is playing a huge part in this. So U.S. electric generating capacity reaching the record high. U.S. planned utility-scale electric generating capacity additions in 2026. And then they've got it broken down month by month, but December is going to explode. So apparently there's a lot of solar farms, I'm assuming, that are going to come online by the end of the year. Maybe that's why it's up so high. Maybe some of them might actually be finished earlier. But yeah, overall, that's a lot, man. What was it, 83? Was that what it was, 83 gigawatts? Or 86 gigawatts? That's a big number. Select Committee on China. Elisa Liu is an Olympic champion. Not sure if I'm pronouncing her name right. I don't watch the Olympics, can you tell? Before the 2022 Beijing Olympics, Elisa and her father were targeted by the CCP for his participation in pro-democracy protests at Tiananmen Square in 1989. He was forced to flee to America, and now his daughter is a Team USA Olympic champion. And from Team USA, a comeback for the ages. Elisa Liu wins Olympic gold, becoming the first U.S. women's figure skating champion since 2002. Long time. Won the gold medal. Congratulations. That's an awesome story. And from the U.S. Department of the Interior, you don't have to take a photograph, you make it, said Ansel Adams. Born on this day in 1902, pioneering photographer Ansel Adams' work continues to serve as a tremendous inspiration. That's an image that he took way back in the day, when, 1920s, 30s, something like that. Long time ago, but very picturesque, very cool looking. And that's going to be the last post that I have for this episode. So I'll see what the weekend brings. If anything new is going to break with regard to the Supreme Court ruling on the tariffs, or if many politicians are going to take the weekend to complain or celebrate the decision. Maybe I'll do a video on that, or I might put something together regarding Howard Lutnick and the rumor that he's making billions of dollars off of this Supreme Court decision. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll drop a new episode of The Swamp on Monday, covering the swamp and everyone in it, the politicians, bureaucrats, and the agencies. And also, I'm posting daily on X, so feel free to comment there too if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your night and a fantastic weekend, and God bless America.